I'll leash you a little bit over here. Wait. Did you see this one?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of November 3rd, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I know we're still working on getting Ms. Hubick signed in, but Mr. Franciac, you take the roll, please.
Mr. Fantini,
Here.
Mr. Young,
Here.
Mr. Walters, here. Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Here.
Ms. Moulton,
Here.
Mr. McDougall, Ms. Hubick.
Here.
All right,
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I move to excuse Mr. McDougall from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Young to excuse Mr. McDougall. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And carries. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. Good to see a big crowd here. We've got announcements and committee reports. And since there is a big crowd here, I will remind everybody, like I always do, the day before an election day. Tomorrow is election day, November 4th. And I believe it is all of our civic duty to vote. So please vote. Ballot boxes will remain open until 8 p.m. tomorrow. There's one at the Anacortes Public Library, that's 1220 10th Street, and over in the Skyline Beach Club on the west end at 641 Sands Way. Also, just a heads up, the Tommy Thompson there'll be trail volunteers working in the late evening on November 4th and 5th tomorrow night. It's a 2025 muscle monitoring survey work. So just know that they've been approved to access to the property. No cause for alarm. They're counting muscles, I think. Let's see, North Star Housing Forum, Tuesday, November 18th. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. Community is invited to participate in discussions about the future of housing in Skagit County and strategies to address the homeless crisis in our region. For more information and registration, visit www.northstarskagit.org. All right. I've got, since I think quite a few of you are here to maybe hear me talk about the budget, we will be talking about the budget a little later. But I thought it'd be important to let members of the public know, not only that it was probably the worst last couple weeks, certainly my time as mayor, certainly hasn't been a fun time, but I think it'll be instructive if I read this letter that I sent out to all staff this morning. Team COA, as many of you know from my budget message last week, we have taken the very difficult step of notifying some of our colleagues that their positions are being eliminated due to the city's current financial conditions. This is not a decision made lightly. It affects people we value and respect, members of our team who have contributed greatly to serving our community. I ask everyone to extend empathy, compassion, and professionalism to those impacted during this transition. Ultimately, the responsibility for these circumstances rests with me. During my 8 years on City Council, I voted for budgets that added positions and costs that at the time seemed manageable but have proven unsustainable. As mayor, I've raised this concern each of the past 3 mayor-council director retreats, as our labor costs have grown by nearly $2 million each year, largely due to contractual obligations. In the previous 2 budget cycles, we were able to balance the budget using remaining cash balances and a one-time FEMA reimbursement. Those resources are now depleted. Taking these steps is necessary to not only ensure not only a balanced budget for 2026, but also the city's financial stability through the end of this year. To those whose service will conclude December 1st, thank you for your commitment to the city of Anacortes and to our residents. To the rest of our staff, thank you for your professionalism, empathy, and continued dedication to serving this community during a challenging time for all of us. So that's what I sent out to the staff this morning. I know council's received a copy of that. But I know there's a lot of questions about, well, how did we get here? Wasn't a very transparent process. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how we got here. When it came clear we couldn't balance the budget without reducing personnel, we brought all the departments together to take a hard look at where we might be able to make cuts. Each team had some depth in staffing and where we could make reductions while it's still maintaining public safety, our critical infrastructure, and essential services like water and sewer. Those positions were identified where those that could achieve the positions were identified where those that could achieve the savings we needed with the least impact on day-to-day service to the community. This was a collaborative and careful process, but that doesn't make it any easier. These are good people who have contributed a lot to the city. This isn't something any of us wanted to do, but I believe it represents the least worst plan to keep the city financials stable and serve our residents. So I thought it was important to communicate that. And with that, council committee reports and announcements. Public Works Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Milton.
The Public Works Committee met today at 5 p.m. and it was council members Young, Walters, myself, and city engineer and soon-to-be interim Public Works Director Logan Lee. We had 2 constituents visit our meeting today and talked about their concerns about truck traffic on 41st Street. 41st Street is not a truck route, but a lot of local trucking companies use it as a shortcut. And of course, sometimes they are going to job sites in that area. So we talked about what it lists in the Anacortes Municipal Code. We talked about signage, potential enforcement, and informing those companies that it is preferred that they would follow the truck route, but we actually don't have good signs either. So we will be working on that. And we really appreciate that these 2 people took the time to come and talk to us, and they had researched very well what was in the code and what's also in the transportation plan. And those kinds of conversations are very helpful to us as council members to hear from the community about what's affecting them, especially on a day-to-day basis. So that was that was very helpful, and we will be working on that. We also talked about speeding on Bryce Avenue and recommendations for enforcement on that. And we had an update on 12th and Commercial intersection, and the signal poles that we are in line for have a long lead time and are expected between February and April of next year. The contractor will have to come back to install those, but the permanent paint markings are starting hopefully tomorrow, and those take 4 days. And so we hope to see those because that's definitely a safety issue that we want in place as soon as possible. If it's not done by the 15th of November, they'll do temporary paint to tide us over through the winter because it's temperature and moisture dependent to do those markings. And 11th Street, there's a bump there that drivers may have noticed, and that is going to be sort of a speed table, sort of an elevated intersection, and their stormwater needs to flow correctly. So there's been some work on that, but it will be clear very soon with markings how that will operate. But it is a little bit of a bump, and it will continue to be. And stormwater is the priority there, and functionality is the second priority. So we will achieve both of those. Thank you.
Thanks. Other announcements, committee reports?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters?
The North Star leadership team met last week and the Housing Task Force met this week today. So a couple of takeaways from those meetings. First of all, the leadership team is sunsetting the North Star Advisory Committee and creating a new steering committee with mayors and a council member from each city, leadership from, say, the hospital districts and other high-level entities. And I imagine that will be one topic that is covered this coming Thursday at the public meeting with all the city councils. Remember, we have that meeting Thursday night at 6 p.m. at the Skagit County Public Health Building to discuss North Star and the proposed interlocal agreement. The Housing Task Force is working on the housing forum that the mayor mentioned. That's in Mount Vernon at the library on November 18th, also at 6 p.m. And at that forum, we expect to hear from a couple of planners in Burlington, Mount Vernon. We'll also see a presentation from architect Bill Krieger, who did a very nice presentation, some of you might remember, in 2011 on architecture and how you can achieve greater housing abundance without substantially impacting neighborhoods. So that presentation, again, is November 18th. You need to register at northstarskagit.org for anybody that wants to attend that presentation, but we are working hard on it, and so we certainly encourage people to do so.
Thanks. Other announcements or committee reports? Okay, we will move on to public comment. I didn't miss anybody, sorry. I'll move on to public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the council on anything that's not on our agenda? And I got a couple of folks signed up, so if you sign up, you always get to go first. And I will start with Janine Jolly, Oaks Avenue Curve. And I know council has received your email with. So again, just state, make sure the light is on at the base, push the button at the base of the microphone. Talk kind of close to it because we still have some speaker problems in the back, and state your name and city you live in for the record, please.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Janine Jolly, and I've stood before you earlier this year. I stand before you this evening by the grace of God that I am here with you and not viewing my son or my husband at the city morgue and planning a funeral. If you believe that to be dramatic, I invite you to view the video and photos of the accident scene. Take a moment to imagine how it feels to have an automobile drive into your home, into your sanctuary. Property destroyed, oil, gasoline, and hazardous material flooding your living space. Video and photo documentation are in your emails today. I am here again, twice in 6 months, to express my deepest concerns, frustrations, and frankly, deep anger. regarding the city's continued absence of meaningful action to address the dangerous road conditions along the stretch of the road above our home. This negligence has directly contributed to repeated catastrophic incidents, the most recent of which occurred on Thursday, October 30th, when an 85-year-old driver fell asleep at the wheel. His vehicle left the roadway and crashed into our home. David and I have been so concerned about this threat that the lack of action by the city, we posted video cameras on our property in the event of such an incident. We had hoped that this action would have been totally unnecessary, and I am so thankful that we did. Only in the video can you see the violent impact of the car on our home. If not for the presence of our hot tub, which exploded on impact, the car would have driven completely through our house. I am so thankful that my family, my dogs, myself, and the drivers of the vehicle were not killed. This is not an isolated event. To date, there have been 4 serious accidents and disastrous accidents at this location since December 25th, 2024, just 10 months. More accidents have preceded these in prior years. Each of these incidents demonstrates a clear pattern of danger, and the city has been aware of this for months. We first presented our concerns and supporting evidence to the city in January 2025, and to you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, on February 24th, 2025, warning of the imminent risk to property and human life due to absence of guardrails or adequate barriers along the stretch of road. Despite these repeated warnings, no corrective protective actions have been taken by the city or the state. With respect, reflective signage does not impede distracted or impaired drivers. It does not prevent catastrophic events. The lack of barriers place our family, our neighbors, our property, and pedestrians that walk that sidewalk and other motorists in ongoing extreme danger. The absence of the guardrails or other protective barriers has repeatedly threatened our personal safety and the safety of our home. On January 13th, 2025, your city engineer, Logan Lee, rattled off in.
Jolly, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay,
So-
can I finish my statement then?
If it's, I'll let you finish up in 20 seconds.
Okay. So I understand that these accidents happen, but they do not happen with this form of outcome is preventable and unacceptable. And I implore you to partner with the state and fix this.
Thank you. Shawana Kitsen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but please state your name and city. And Oaks Avenue curve.
Good evening. My name is Shauna Kitsan, and I am a Channel Landing resident with Miss Jolly. In the spirit of Halloween recently, a Ring camera captured 3 seconds of what could only be described as home horror. Thankfully, no one was killed this time. But make no mistake, if the city of Anacortes continues on its current path of inaction, relying on a single reflective sign to safeguard this dangerous Oaks Avenue curve, and continuing sole deference to DOT jurisdiction, thus refusing to champion for safety, plus both a city engineer's and attorney's justifications for the lack of barrier necessity and erection responsibility, it is statistically inevitable that we will soon see a video of something far worse. 3 seconds of human horror. The Channel Landing community has been clear and consistent in its requests since Janine Jolly and I last spoke before this council on February 24th. We are not asking for the impossible. We are asking for a simple, tangible barrier, whether that means metal railing, ecology blocks, or strategically placed boulders, anything that will physically protect lives and property at this proven treacherous curve of both road and city-owned sidewalk. Since that February appearance, there have been 3 more additional serious accidents, including the most recent and most severe on October 30th. This brings the total number of accidents at that single curve to date of 7. 7 preventable collisions, 7 warnings ignored, 7 near misses from tragedy. At this point, the data speaks for itself, but so does the law. Allow me to remind the council of the definition of negligence per Google research. It is the failure to take proper care in doing something, failure to behave with the reasonable level of care that someone of ordinary prudence would have exercised in the same circumstance. Negligence may result from a person's actions or their omission of actions. When a danger known exists, when warnings have been issued repeatedly by concerned residents, and when accidents continue to occur, omission becomes negligence. The city of Anacortes now stands at a moral and legal crossroads. Will it continue to rely on hope, reflective signage, and inaction justifications, or will it take proactive responsibility to prevent the statistically inevitable? We urge you with both reason and conscience to act now. Collaborate with the DOT, if needed, to install a physical barrier of sorts at this dangerous Oaks Avenue curve before home horror becomes human tragedy. The cost of prevention is always less than the cost of regret and litigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Sherry Cheney, same subject, Oaks Avenue curve.
Good evening.
Make
My name is Cheryl.
a little closer to the microphone, make sure
Oh,
the
sorry.
green light's on there.
It's on. My name is Cheryl Cheney, and I'm the current president of the Channel Landing HOA. And so this is my first year on the job, and so I'm learning about the association. And so I won't go over what everybody else has talked. There's been several accidents. What I do know is that over the years, the accidents have become more and more severe. Fortunately, we have not had anyone that I'm aware of seriously hurt or killed. I'm not sure how the drivers that hit the Jolly's residents walked away from that. Once you see the video, if you haven't seen it, you might, ask the same question. The homeowner association board is responsible for the maintenance of the fence that's along that street right there. And I don't know if I guess what I learned during this year is that that fence is a sound deadening acoustic fence. So each panel is multi-layered, and each panel to replace right now is $3,000. We have now incurred $40,000 worth of damage that I'm aware of. And so I don't know where the tipping point is between when you decide to put a barrier up or not put a barrier up. I'm most concerned about someone getting seriously hurt or being killed somewhere along the line, whether it's a homeowner, a pedestrian, an occupant in a car. And that scares me to death. So I would just ask that you reconsider putting a barrier there. I think it's needed, and hopefully we'll save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. David Jolly, Oaks Avenue curve.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is David Jolly. Forgive my voice. Hopefully it'll last through this presentation. I too live at 4207 Navigator Lane here in Anacortes. I don't want to talk about, I hate talking about me, but I think a little bit might bring some context to my message. I'm an attorney. I'm a criminal traffic attorney. I've done it for about 30 years. I've written 30 books on the subject. I deal with accident reconstruction and road safety experts every week. I'm very familiar with the Department of Transportation, the DOL, NHTSA, and other organizations that discuss traffic and road safety. I also was an assistant city attorney at the beginning of my career. This is my language. I deal with this every single day. And the response that we received from the city less than a year ago, I could see through that in a millisecond. It was dismissive, it was condescending, and it proved to be inaccurate, wrong, and dangerous. It also opened the door, I believe, to, that's already been mentioned, but negligence, based on the information that resulted in the conclusion that this specific accident was a unique situation that is unlikely to reoccur. It's reoccurred. It's worse than it was last year. So how do we feel living in a home that's been essentially a battering ramp for weapons? Vehicles are weapons. We feel nervous. We feel very uneasy. Um, For example, after this incident occurred, I came home, I looked in the outside, saw the damage. I walked inside. I walked into my den, which was right behind that hot tub that effectively acted as an airbag for a vehicle. I saw a fence that was outside, now inside. It went through a cabinet and it stopped somewhat over where a sofa is or was. If you sat down, that beam was head height. Guess where I was 15 to 20 minutes earlier? Right there. I was on the phone to my wife as I walked into that office, and it took my breath away. We were 15 to 20 minutes away from a fatality, me or the drivers, and thank God nobody was injured. So how do we feel now, as I mentioned? Do you think that we can go out to the patio that was destroyed by this vehicle? No. Do you think we can have a hot tub there? No. Do you think we feel safe? No. You can call that what you want, but the law calls it emotional distress. Negligence and emotional distress equal. I think you can guess probably what they equal. But I stand before you with some hope, not much, but some hope that something's going to be done. I also stand here in good faith. We haven't contacted or put anything on social media that's negative. We could have. We haven't contacted the traditional media, TV, newspapers. If you Google Snohomish County Courthouse Eminent Domain, you will see us in TV news and newspapers about 12 years ago. We've done it. We will do it again if this doesn't work out, but we haven't done that. We haven't filed any sort of suit.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to wrap it up, please.
Okay. 20 seconds.
Okay. So the cost of installing a guardrail for safety is expensive. The cost of damage to our house last week is around $100,000. The cost of installation of a guardrail now is far cheaper than not installing our guardrail. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got, I did have a raised hand online, but I've got one more who signed up Ursula Edelman. And it was crossed off, but I think it says layoffs. Okay. And again, please state your name and city you live in 3 minutes to address the council.
Hello, City Council. My name is Ursula Edelman. I live on D Avenue here in Anacortes. I wanted to speak about the personnel cuts that have been announced, but more specifically about Diana Farnsworth. She's the teen librarian at the public library and an absolute force of positivity. There are not many people whose job it is to make teens feel welcome, to make this town feel like a welcoming and friendly place for teens, which is a group that often feels like no one in the city sees or speaks for them. I understand that budget cuts like these are hard decisions, but I wanted you to know that her absence will hurt for the teens she has inspired. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Okay, the hand, you're ready, you can put your hand back up, but you are going to have to say your name. I've got Dee's iPad, so please state your name and city you live in. You'll get unmuted shortly. 3 minutes.
Good evening. This is Dennis Clark, Anacortes resident since 2011. Having watched the October 27th City Council meeting discussion on the proposed public works budget, I have two groups of questions that might be worth asking. Group one, during the great financial crisis, the city balanced the budget in part by prioritizing staff retention and cutting infrastructure maintenance such as street maintenance. This led to a substantial decline in infrastructure condition that took a decade to correct. At the October 27th council meeting, it was recognized that the structural fiscal problems we're facing will be even greater than those of 15 years ago. Is the 2026 budget setting us on a path that will repeat the choices during the great financial crisis? Put another way, as much as we want to retain all of our excellent city staff, we need to balance expenditures for staff with expenditures for equipment, supplies, and capital projects. Are we cutting the number of positions we truly need to cut in order to ensure that core infrastructure maintenance stays on schedule? Question number two. If I understand correctly, the proposed public works budget will zero out contributions to equipment replacement funds. What are the consequences of this approach? How many years can these contributions be skipped before it creates even bigger problems fiscally or in terms of staff not having the necessary safe, capable, and economical equipment. Thank you for your consideration and keep up your good work.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have anybody else signed up, but I'll, one more opportunity. If anybody wants to address the council, anything's not on our agenda tonight. Okay, see no raised hands. I will move on to our consent agenda, items 5A through D, council.
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Young.
I move we approve the consent agenda items 5A through D, I do believe he said.
Yes.
Yep.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Young and a second by Mr. Fantini to approve the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to item 6. This is other business, and item 6A is the 2025 development regulation amendments for periodic update. This is Planning Commission recommendations. It's a discussion item only, and Mr. Coleman is already at the podium. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Coleman. And this item is open for public comment.
Good evening, council, members of the public, mayor. Thank you. So my name is John Coleman. I'm the Director of Planning, Community and Economic Development. As the council and many people who follow this process are aware, 2 weeks ago, the planning department brought to the city council the planning commission's recommended amendments to the comprehensive plan. Associated with those amendments are also development regulation amendments. So tonight, we're bringing those development regulations to the city council. And all of the information is in your packet. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I'm gonna walk through some of the documents just so you can follow it procedurally and understand it. But again, like with the comp plan, I'm not gonna be talking about the details of the content, but I do wanna help navigate through since there's several documents. We already talked about what the comp plan is and how the development regulations play into the comp plan. Here is the schedule. Again, we're getting close to the finish line here in November of 2025, and we have to have this done by the end of December this year. I'm just putting this up here again as a plug for www.planacortes.org. That's where all of this information can be found, including all of the details shown here. But all of that information is available and linked on that website. An update to the number of meetings that we've had. Now we've had 31 Planning Commission meetings as of the end of last month. 9 of those have been public hearings. Now, this is the 11th touch that the city council has had on the comp plan or development regulations, and we've had 3 open houses, 4 climate team meetings, and many, many other engagement opportunities. So on October 22nd, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the development regulations, and they deliberated and made their recommendation that is attached to your council. So the draft modifications are all under the recorded motion portion of it and its amendments. I'm going to walk everybody through that here momentarily. The staff report that came with your packet talks a lot about the procedural and background of the process. And it may be a little confusing. It talks about the nuances of one specific planning commission recommendation about bike lanes on J Avenue. That is number 19. I'm not going to go into that. Hopefully the memo explains the details of that. But if you have any questions, I also want to remind the council that they're welcome to call Libby Grage or myself, and we can help with any of your questions, and that'll make the process in the future move a little smoother. That way, there's fewer questions to answer potentially at our next meeting, which is going to be next week on November 10th, when we're expecting we're hoping that the council will deliberate and begin their discussions and ask questions, although we're not going to be asking for any action at that time. So in the staff report, there are several exhibits. A through C are just background and procedural information. Exhibit D is a table that has a summary of all of the changes in each of the sections in the development regulations. So chapter by chapter discussion in that table of what those changes are. Exhibit E is the Planning Commission recommendation itself. It's referred to, it's labeled recorded motion regarding the 2025 periodic update of the development regulations. That just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But it does kind of explain what it is. That document has 3 attachments. So here's the exhibit E, the actual recommendation. And so it's 3 pages, and then it moves into the attachments, which are attachment A is the 111-page development regulation amendments themselves. So that's all of the code, strike through, underline, that was proposed to be changed. That was released in early September of this year. And that document, as it's shown, there's no changes to that from when it was originally presented to the public. So that document has remained static. Attachment B of the Planning Commission recommendations includes the changes that have been recommended since that original attachment A was created. And that way we're not trying to confuse changes since it was released with changes that were made originally. So that's why I'm describing it. It's a little confusing because you've got the one big document and then you've got another document that says, in addition to all the changes you saw in that big document, here's some other ones. And sometimes it might reverse some of the ones that were in that big document. It gets a little tricky. That's why we're really happy to answer any questions that the council has. So contact Libby or I, and we'll get through it. And again, I mentioned attachment A does not show the Planning Commission recommended changes. You need to see attachment B for that. And then attachment C is the zoning map. That reflects the future land use map that we went over when I presented the comp plan 2 weeks ago to the city council. The future land use map and the zoning map are very similar, but they're technically in 2 different places and are 2 separate entities, but they are basically the same map. So this is what attachment A looks like. This is that static, larger 111-page document. I put this here so you can see what it looks like, because as you're trying to fumble through all these documents, I thought this would be helpful. This document, when you look at it, even in the council packet, it's linkable, and you can click it. Like if you put your cursor over one of these chapters, they light up and you can click on it and it'll take you right to that section if you want to navigate around like that. It also has live links in it. So if there's something that has a link, it'll take you to say the current code, so you can see what the current code looks like now. Attachment B is the Planning Commission's recommended modifications. I believe there's 23 recommendations that they've made in addition to the ones in that larger document. This is only 6 pages long, so it's fairly condensed. These are not all things that Planning Commission said, we talked about it, we talked about these things, we'd like to change it. Some of them were things that the public brought up and said, hey, we think this is maybe not correct. Or like, one example we found there was, we changed something in one place, but we missed it in another place in the code. So that was pointed out and I was like, oh, great help. So those kind of recommendations are in there also. As are other things that maybe members of the public pointed out and Planning Commission found that those were good recommendations. So the major changes to the development regulations are summarized in Exhibit D. I already mentioned that. Some of the highlights include the major things are amendments to implement the housing action plan. And so the city council reviewed the housing action plan and gave the Planning Commission some guidance on which parts of the housing action plan they wanted the Planning Commission to review and possibly make amendments. And so those were included. And then there's also several statutory requirements from the state I may have put the wrong number in here, but such as House bills that require the 2 ADUs per residential lot. There was a lot of changes to the GMA over the past 3 or 4 years that we needed to make a lot of changes to our code to implement. Of course, there was also the 2021 comp plan updates that were never completed. And so we reviewed those and got those wrapped up, as well as the requested amendments proposed by the citizens that the city council included on the 2025 docket, as well as updating that zoning map to match the future land use map as recommended by the city, by the planning commission. So where are we now? What's next? So we're hoping at the next city council meeting on November 10th, we'll put it on the agenda to first talk about the comprehensive plan. And so that'll be your first opportunity to really ask questions, and we can go into detail on specific items. And so have a list of things you'd like to talk about. Feel free to give us a heads up on what you want to talk about so we're better prepared to answer them. And then a separate item will be the discussion of the development regulations. So hopefully it won't be too long of a night. And this is just a first read. And then we'll have a second read on November 24th. I believe November 17th, we've got a packed agenda. So we're skipping the comp plan for the 17th and putting it on the 24th. That will be a second read. Technically, if you were to say, wow, Planning Commission, you did a great job. We like everything that you've done. You could potentially pass the comprehensive, you could adopt the comprehensive plan and development and regulations that night. We'll see that. I don't anticipate that that's necessarily going to be the case, but one can dream. And then once we'll eventually get through that process. The statutory deadline is the end of this year, so hopefully we can get through that in December, both the development regulations and the comp plan. Associated with this update is a required update of the critical areas regulations to make sure that they meet best available science. That statutory deadline is the end of 2026, so we'll be working on that. We already are working on that, but we'll be bringing that to you later in 2026. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Again, for council, the real hope by bringing this to you all tonight is so you have some time to, if you got those really hard questions, it's probably best to not, ask a real complex question on the 10th, unless you want to be there till midnight, which I'm sure it's fine, but give the staff a little bit of heads up to try to track it down or some of the whys. But with that, any member of the public want to comment at this point on this? Again, there's a lot of ways to look at this online, anacortes.org. Wait, yes. And again, it's very easily linkable. Okay, council questions.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
Mr. Coleman, in the strike through and underline version of the code that's proposed, there's a set of purple strike through and underline, and the key indicates that reflects changes that are part of other pending legislation, specifically draft ordinance 4092, which implements our revised permit review timeframes. What's your plan for adoption of that ordinance? Are you planning to bring that to us simultaneous with this for us to adopt this and thus adopt the content from that one, or some other combination?
So that's getting a little complicated because the appeal of that SEPA determination for that ordinance has held that up. That may not come, that ordinance may not make it to the city council before the comprehensive plan. So that is a good point that we'll have to navigate around those particular items that whether or not they're included or not in this comprehensive plan update.
So it sounds like we're going to still have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I guess before council, I probably missed it online. Dee's iPad, who I believe is Dennis Clark. Did you have a comment on the development regulations amendment update?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Miller. Again, Dennis Clark, Anacortes resident. I strongly support the development regulations update changes that increase density, explicitly allow new types of middle housing not previously permitted, and reduce unnecessary permitting conditions for some uses. While I think the Planning Commission has done an excellent job overall, there's one decision they made at their final meeting on October 22nd that I would suggest council explore and possibly reconsider. If I understand correctly, the commission declined to allow duplexes on smaller lots in certain situations, as shown in table 19.42-020. I think the city should not miss any opportunity to increase density incrementally. 5 years ago, I watched a duplex be constructed on the vacant lot next to our home. Like a lot of people, I guess I was thinking, there goes the neighborhood. But on the contrary, the duplex, when completed, was attractive and has drawn in good neighbors. And I'm glad to know it provides an affordable rental home to two families who might not otherwise find a home here in Anacortes. So I do want to ask that the city council look at that and consider whether duplexes shouldn't be allowed everywhere we have low density residential zoning. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for the comment. All right, sorry, back council. More questions? Yeah, we were expecting that question on that, on the process. I know the team is working on that for the DNS SEPA appeal. Okay, we will move on to item 6B. This is a contract award, Municipal Fiber Network Coordinated Services. Discussion item with possible action, and Ms. Shu working her way over there. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Shu.
Mayor, council members, the audience, tonight I am presenting for you a contract award for Municipal Fiber Network Coordinated Services. We work with NOAANet to provide these services. It ends up being an extension of our department. Without this coordination, we would need additional staff to be able to do our network monitoring 24/7 and our call center. We have also utilized NOAANet for help with the outside plant work, helping with the design and construction developing those plans. And so as we spent a lot of time working with NOAANet, they agreed to maintain the same pricing structure that we've had for the past 5 years. So this is for a 1-year contract with 2 one-year extensions, honoring that pricing. It does create an opportunity for us to continue with the services that we have. We did negotiate to include quarterly progress reports or meetings with them to ensure that everything is operating as we would like it to. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, questions on this contract, council?
Matt Miller?
Mr. Young?
No, I just wanted to comment that, I'm happy we're moving forward and being as doing the due diligence to make sure that we're being efficient, not only with how and what we're doing, but that we're continuing to provide the services and expand, out into the city. I'm been waiting a while, and I think tomorrow is my big day. And I'm excited about it. So, I'm just generally very supportive. And unless there's any questions from council at this point, I'm going to do the recommended motion. And I move that the city council authorize the mayor to sign contract 26-011-FBR-001 with NOAANet to provide the municipal fiber network coordinated services.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Young, a second by Ms. Moulton to approve the contract as presented. Any additional discussion? Sounds like adding a future certified fiber customer. All right, Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Yes.
Ms. Moulton.
Yes.
Ms. Hubick.
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. On to item 6C. This is an interlocal agreement with Skagit County for 2025 library materials funding. It's a discussion item with possible action. Mr. Vogel, when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is the annual funding from the county. This is our interlocal with the county. For decades, they've been providing money to all the city libraries in the counties of Burlington, Mount Vernon, and Anacortes to help offset some of the non-resident fees to provide materials for non-residents. And this year, it's a sum of $17,481 to assist in providing library materials to residents of unincorporated Skagit County, so non-residents. What's unique about this year is that this will be the last year that they're providing the funds. They sent a letter out, which I included in the packet there, where they're having their own budget difficulties, and this will be the last. So I'm hoping you'll approve this. This is part of our 2025 budget, so this goes into our 2025 budget. So hoping you can approve it. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Vogel?
Mayor Miller,
Mr. Fantini?
I did read that letter. It was unclear to me if this is like a permanent elimination for years to come, or if this is, hey, we're pausing this for a while. I was just wondering if you had any other visibility on that.
I don't. I read it differently. It says we're no longer able to continue allocating funds to local libraries going forward. That felt a little bit more permanent to me, but I can certainly reach out and we can be hopeful for future years.
Okay. Unless there's any objection, I motion to approve this agenda item as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Fantini and a second by Mr. Young to approve the interlocal cooperation agreement between the city of Anacortes and Skagit County for library materials. Any additional discussion? Mr. Franciac, vote please.
Ms. Cleland McGrath,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, on to item 6D. This is the 2026 budget work session. This is the governmental funds, and it might be a few minutes to get Mr. Hoagland and finance team and all the general fund directors up. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, Council asked for a little bit more information on the opioid settlement money last week. So we put together a couple of slides, hopefully providing more information for you. We went back and did a reconciliation of our general ledger against the receipts that we'd actually been notified of, the transmittals. And so what we came up with is a slightly higher dollar amount than I believe what was reported last week. So we've to date received $332,000. The only money we've spent of that is for Zeke at $15,000, leaving a balance currently at $317,515. And then we have additional projected revenues based on information that's been provided to the city attorney. So what we're expecting in 2026 is an additional $47,942. So that brings the total that we're projecting available in 2026 at $365,457. So we talked a little bit last week about some of the uses that, as we were going through the budget, we had talked about at the staff level. So one of those was the school resource officer, as council is now aware, the funding for 100% of that position would fall to the city of Anacortes. So we're currently paying half of that, roughly 80,000. We were proposing to pay the other 80,000 for that position out of those opioid monies to fully fund that SRO position in fiscal year 2026. $30,000, we talked about this a little bit last week. The Anacortes Family Center contract came to council, was not approved last week, but that was set at $30,000 sorry, not set at 30,000. We had identified that at 30,000 as part of the draft budget process. That was another item that we thought is an eligible use of the opioid money. Other things we talked about, the proposed projects in the library, museum, and parks departments, 15,000 over 5 years for a total of 75,000. And we have a couple of slides on that. I think council had asked for more information on those programs, so we have those directors here with a couple of additional slides to provide that additional information.
Mayor Miller,
Yes, Mr. Fantini.
just a quick clarification, if you could just flip back. Two questions I had. One, the 30,000 for the Anacortes Family Center, is that fully funding the service we're getting now?
The
Like, is that like what is being spent on that that position now? And is this 30,000 gonna be enough to sustain it at its current level for next year?
Yeah, the original request in the draft that staff put forward was $60,000, and that was trimmed to $30,000 through that budget process with the mayor and department heads.
Okay, the only other question I had is, I know that the county came here and made a request as well. Are we not doing that as part of this, or?
So yeah, there's another slide at the end of this that kind of summarizes what the county talked about back in September.
What I get for interrupting. Thank you.
No, and it's okay, and it'll be a good question for Chief Floyd when he goes through his budget on the family center piece.
Yep. Mayor, Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. So you asked us for more information about what the ideas we had for the use of the opioid funds between Parks and Recreation, Library, and Museum. And so we have put together a more information for you based on the use that we think that we can deal with per year, at least starting in 2026, and the funds that we will spend out of the 5,000 if we are allotted that amount. So that is what we tried to answer here. Myself, Mr. Vogel, and the other Mr. Lunsford are here to answer your questions. We'll start alphabetically with Mr. Vogel in the library.
So I'm hoping to provide a little more details here. You asked about how I would use the 5,000. And so basically, like I said last time, we're hoping to hire a teen over the summer to help with library programs. You can see the sort of cost breakdown there, the estimate. We can do a lot with this money, and this will be incredibly helpful. I mean, what we're doing, what better way to curb drug use than to provide kids with a place of belonging and do programming. And so the second paragraph is basically, it's about $500 to have performers come for summer reading, doing 5 different programs. That's $2,500. So it ends up, give or take, around $5,000. Any questions for the library section? All right.
The plan at the museum would be to continue some of our community collaborations focusing on youth, such as past collaborations with the high school media club to produce some videos where they would engage with some elders in the community. And then to also work with the Anacortes Music Project on some arts-related music and history projects that could work in conjunction with our upcoming music exhibit. And then in Parks and Recreation, we would expand a lot of things that we currently offer and add new elements to them. So after school arts programming, which is something that we already do, we would expand and work with partners in the community like the Anacortes Arts Festival and offer multi-week programs
serving between 30 and 45 youth in that for the cost between $1,800 and $2,500. So expanding them into programs after school, allowing youth to do activities that currently aren't available to them or aren't available to the demand that we currently have. We can't quite meet it. Youth athletic drop-in programs, funds will be supporting 4-week sessions held throughout the year, serving at least 100 youth. This is a very popular program, and we do it for youth to come in after school and drop in and or sign up to do activities such as just sports and use in a gym during our winter weather and activities that we can use them. What we found success in is if we have a young adult that's there, supported by teens working with them, helping us to work with the other younger teens that come in. In this case, we'd also provide snacks that could be a part of an afternoon drop-in time. We'd probably do that downstairs and in other school gyms as they became available. And then finally, we work with nonprofit youth camp coordinators. So things that we don't do well now, we would work with drama clubs at the schools. We'd reach out to them. Sports and yoga, things that we currently don't do or don't do enough of. And we think that by doing this, we could attract youth that don't come to our regular sports leagues. We could have a wider reach and do it again after school and on some evenings and weekends. We think this would be about $1,500 to $2,000. So that's the idea that we have together as the three entities of the city to try to have youth outreach and collaboration with our nonprofit partners in the city. And we think that by doing so, we would engage youth that don't have things to do or don't have enough things to do and would benefit from youth mentoring and peer mentorship. So that's our plan. If you need more information, we're happy to try to answer your questions. I also think Mr. South is here. If you want to do a deep dive into recreation, he's our person.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you for the details you provided. And can you remind me, I think it was probably in the first slide, what the total is for how many years for all three?
Our current request is 75,000 over 5 years or 15,000 a
For
year.
5 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So no one is better at stretching their dollars, in my opinion, than parks and library and the museum. They've been required to do that for years now. So I have a lot of faith in how this money will be stretched and spent. One of the main conversations I've had with community members over the last several years is the lack of opportunities for activities for our youth, with the bowling alley being gone. I know we have great programs at parks and library already, and the museum. And so I know we have not had the conversation broadly about what we're going to do with these opioid funds. And I don't know when we're going to, but this is something, this program for 5 years at $75,000 total, and the ability to impact so many youth in our community that are not being currently reached, I would support.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like, when are we having this discussion? And the point of bringing all of this is in the context of you all saw the request from the county in the North Star program, and certainly that's the other end of this. And I know there's those of you, everybody's participated in North Star at some extent, and the great debate there is the upstream versus the downstream, and certainly this would be considered some of the upstream, the catch it early, and the downstream would be things like transitional housing. So yeah, we're looking for guidance from the council on how you want to prioritize that in the big picture of the ask from the county. So,
Miller.
Mr. Young.
No, just really wanted to echo Ms. Moulton's comments. I think that the reality of where we are, I think when we were having this initial discussion, I asked about when we get opioid money, it seems like it should go toward preventative care and or helping those that are already in trouble. I'll use that word. But Mr. Lunsford explained that this really is a holistic approach with many components coming together to help our youth and to help us as a collective to be able to address those issues. And so for me, with my concern being making sure that money is going toward those issues, a program like this, I think at a minimal cost is a wonderful thing for our community, particularly as we deal with other budget issues that are facing not only us, but, the country as a whole. And for our beloved city, one of the things that we do and do well is to try to treat our citizenry as best as we can, frugally utilizing those dollars as best as we can. And quite honestly, not only because I'm a city councilman, I took a priority in looking and seeing, are we, being a B school graduate, I love business, I love entrepreneurship, I love creativity. And part of those tools is what makes me happy. And what I did was I took a hard look at how we were doing in this city. And are we managing those dollars as best as we can? Are we doing the most that we can with the least? Because we don't really have that much these days. And that the answer to that for me is a resounding yes. So when I think about the youth here and the care that it gets versus care that youth gets in other parts of the country, we are so fortunate. Even though things are not perfect, we are lucky because we have some extraordinary people willing to step up and do as best as they can to do right by the youth. So in this case, I think that the money will be well spent, and I'm very much supportive of it. And of course, I always thank you, the staff, and the team, the mayor's team, for working so hard to try to do the best with limited resources. And you always seem to pull a rabbit out of the hat. So I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
I know we're not engaging in a full discussion right now, but allow me to throw my 2 cents in. It feels to me like the farther a dollar gets away from our actual community, the less impact it has on our actual community. And I think for me, I understand what the county's trying to do in the North Star Initiative, and I think there's a lot of good work being done there. But over the last few weeks, it's become clear that we need a lot of help here in Anacortes. And what I'm very supportive of are programs like this for the library, museum, and parks where we are engaging our youth, because it feels like when it comes to helping folks, whether it's transitional housing, rehabs, or whatever, there's nothing for people under the age of 18. So where's the preventative? So I applaud this. Also, when it comes to the community officer at the school, that directly affects us here in Anacortes. I think that is a worthwhile thing to fund. And then the other one that I would mention pretty passionately is the social worker through the family center. Like, we've seen the work that position does. We've seen that money translate to a direct impact on people's lives. Not we think there will be an impact, we hope there will be an impact, but there is an impact. So those would be my top 3 priorities as we're looking at opioid funding settlements.
Mayor Miller. Mr. Walters.
The library, museum, and parks departments are asking for $75K, which translates to $15K for 5 years. Is there any reason we couldn't just look at the context of this coming budget year and allocate $15K now?
There's no reason from our perspective that you couldn't do that if you'd like to.
Okay, good. My inclination, it really is to support library, museum, and parks with their request, because we are simultaneously cutting those departments. And if there is some opportunity for them to do more with less here and also serve the purposes for a very small amount of money, all things in consideration, I I would be in favor of trying that out for a year. It's not in the proposed budget. It doesn't have a star on the chart here, right? What does have a star on the chart are the AFC and the SRO. I'm also supportive of funding the SRO. We approved the interlocal last week, which set us down that path. I'm also in favor of funding AFC at some level. I am not certain, though, that I'm in favor of spending opioid money in favor of those projects because for a couple of reasons, but maybe the principal one is it's supplanting existing funding. And there's obviously a case to be made for that because there's less funding available. But also we are getting this opioid funding to try to solve a problem that SRO and AFC were not already working. I mean, they in some ways they address this issue, but this is new money, and if we use it on existing programs, we are not getting the new benefit. So I'm pretty hesitant about that, but we don't have to resolve this tonight. We should look at it in the context of the entirety of the budget. And we also don't have to allocate 100% of the $365,000 tonight either. We could save some of that for future years, since this is a particularized bucket of money that has some strings on what we can spend it on. But just my inclination really is to provide some money to North Star because we know that that's a service that isn't otherwise provided in this community. And I think we have a responsibility to play with others in the sandbox regionally. And this is one of the areas we could do that. But the services there are just, to someone who needs those services, there is no substitute. Like you can do library and museum activities all day long, but if you are in need of that recovery service, you gotta get it. The value of library museum is hopefully we put that money into prevention rather than recovery. But if you need the recovery service, where else are you going to get it? And how else is that going to be achieved if we don't put some money into that? And we have a responsibility, I think, regionally to play that role. So those are my thoughts at this point, but I imagine that those could change and we'll get more in depth in the rest of the budget and have to make some hard choices.
Mayor Mo.
Ms. Cleland McGrath.
Thank you. So first I'd like to say thank you to the Library, Museum and Parks Department for answering our questions. I know I asked some of those about how that money will work, how many folks will actually be involved in those programs. So thank you for getting that information back to us. I was a little confused why we're talking about it right now when we've got some really big budget issues, but we also have a North Star meeting on Thursday. So having the information now helps us guide the direction of where we're going in the future. I would take a little disagreement with Councilmember Walters. I think that the school resource officer continues to serve a purpose that's directly influences the opioid epidemic and the challenges we've seen. I think that Chief Floyd made a very good explanation of how that school resource officer kind of has a positive impact on the three pots of students who have different interactions with the police. So I think that that's something that continues to be prevention and also some level of recovery and going to the recovery situation. I think that the Family Center for the service provided of the social worker partnering with our fire department and our police really is kind of that first step in getting someone into recovery. A lot of times it's building rebuilding the relationship with society and structure that has been broken down by folks who are living in the extremes and having some really personal challenges, whether it's addiction or mental health issues. So I think that this is a continuum of care, and both resource officer and family center social service coordination is really important to get them to that next step, which is detox, which is what I think North Star is trying to provide, is combining the resources of all of our cities and our county to provide some really key gaps in that recovery process. So yes, I think we need to balance it, but I do think that a number of these two start items, along with the $75,000 over 5 years, but I agree we should be able to find that money elsewhere. Or we should be able to find that $15,000, even if it's not coming from the opioid funds. So thank you.
All right, we're ready to dive into the budget workshop. And again, I'll try to just recognize whoever I think is going to talk so we can try to work through the kind of less formal recognition so we can ask the questions of each of the teams. But with that, Mr. Hoagland.
Yeah, just last item I wanted to point out, we didn't talk about it, 150,000 that the police department has been, had some conversations with City of Oak Harbor about going into an agreement with them to for a shooting range, for use of a shooting range. So that's also not in the budget, but that would provide additional shooting resources that the police department doesn't currently have. And that would be, at any rate, that's preliminary discussions only at this point. And then the final item here, the North Star summary. This is a summary of the program that they brought to council September 15th. What they were proposing was these joint projects where the state would retain 20% of that funding. 80% of it would go to the North Star projects. And then a few of those projects listed here, the Skagit Star Center startup, detox bridge housing, and then some of these don't have cost estimates associated with them. It was the detox bridge housing was 1.5 million, and I'm sorry, the detox bridge housing was 800,000, and then the Star Center, I believe, was 1.5 million. Anyway, that's that. This has now been released as part of the council packet. Thank you.
All right. So based on the conversation, we'll do as best we can of kind of gathering. We can't do a survey monkey, with council. It doesn't work that way with the OPMA rules. But we'll try to capture what we think we've heard. And then ultimately, I know there's a discussion at North Star and you're going to have to figure out what kind of percentage you're interested and then what you want to fund with opioids funds here. All right.
No.
On with the public safety section of the workshop, right?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the format's going to be the same as last week. We'll have the directors up here. Rhonda will be running the slides. Directors presenting their budgets, answering questions to council. So.
First up tonight is police. So Chief Floyd is here.
Rhonda, just one preliminary. In this packet, have you updated the CFP sheets to reflect what is actually in the budget, or are they the initial CFP sheets that we saw?
So in the instance of the non-public works folks, the CFP budgets are what is reflected in both. In
the proposed budget?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thanks.
Proposed budget matches CFP across the board tonight. So I'll just give a quick summary for Chief Floyd. His budget is up 5% from the prior year, which is primarily anticipated and due to salaries and wages. And then again, we noted here that we are still exploring options for funding that school resource officer based on that prior conversation around the opioid funding. And then the only capital item for APD is the 3 new vehicles at 285,000. And I believe you guys passed a contract for those last month to get that process moving forward.
Hand mics probably, yeah. And again, the speakers in the back, so you gotta kind of eat the microphones. The speakers in the back aren't that great, so.
Good evening, members of council, mayor, and members of the audience. So as Rhonda was segueing into, the increases in our budget are fairly small for 2026. And we have, like many city departments, cut a lot, trying to help the city with the budget challenges. Some of those categories are easier to absorb than others. One thing I would draw your attention to is the reduction in our travel and training. And while I think that we can manage this, I do have some cause for concern because our state training commission has increased the amount of cost to the agencies in addition to changing some of the mileage requirements. And that's going to put the onus on the individual agency to cover those costs. So with the one individual that we're looking to hire next month, we're looking at potential academy costs of about $18,000 that we're going to need to be able to cover. And that will come straight out of our travel and training. That's going to impact career development and ongoing training for the skills and abilities of in-house instructors. We're going to be able to manage keeping those individuals that are currently certified to be instructors, but it's probably going to limit our ability to have new instructors trained to take over for those folks that are aging out of their respective roles. And we're going to need to postpone those transitions. One thing that we are going to be unable to postpone is going to be replacing our TASER platform. So we are currently carrying the TASER XP26, which is about 4 generations older than what's currently out there on the market from TASER. And they are going to stop supporting that. So that's going to force us to transition to a more current version, which I believe is important that we do because that is a less than lethal use of force option that we want to make sure our staff has available as a option when we're encountering individuals in conflict. Anytime we can avoid lethal use of force, that's our preference. And this enables us to have that tool available. The newer versions also have increased efficiencies and increased range available to allow us to diffuse some of those situations at a safer distance for the officer involved.
Chief, does that show up on the small tools minor equipment line? Is that where you're asking for budget for?
It is. I have it.
Line 48.
Yes, so that will be 7035, the small tools and minor equipment.
That's the bars number, 7035. Those are your plain bars numbers. Yeah, go ahead.
Chief, so we just got this today, so I'm if this information's probably in here, so if I don't have the right answer, or if I'm asking a question that should be easy to find, I'm sorry. So I remember we talked about the TASER replacements and you were going to put it on a 5-year plan. Is that still the case, or are you going to try to do it all in 1 year?
We cannot afford to do that all in one
Okay.
year. The cost to transition 33 officers over, assuming we're buying one for each of the positions that we've allocated, is going to be in the neighborhood of $150,000. Fortunately, TASER allows us to stretch that over a 5-year contract. And at the end of that 5 years, we own those, but we've managed to stretch out the cost of that over 5 years. So we're not incurring that all in one budget cycle.
Chief.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, with the reduction in overtime, what is that going to look like as far as service goes?
So we've had great success in hiring in 2025. We've hired, it'll be by the end of the year, we'll have hired 6 positions. 2 of those individuals are finishing their last phase of field training and will be on solo patrol status before the end of the year. We were able to get a lateral officer that we did not have to send to the academy that was able to complete an expedited field training process and was on solo patrol after 2 months. We have 2 individuals that are graduating the academy next month and will begin their field training process. And then we have 1 individual that we'll be bringing on board in December. So that'll be our 6th position we've hired since the beginning of the year. What that translates to is what you've seen out when you're out in the community is more patrol cars, more officers out, very visible, and an increased presence in the community. I've heard from a number of individuals, wow, it really feels like we have more police. Well, it's because we do. And so that's those are starting to pay dividends in that return on investment that we have from the levy lift.
Great. And then my other question is, kind of also a tie into the opioid settlements. If we were to move forward with that $150,000 investment into that training center in Oak Harbor, would there be any line items on here next year that would be reduced? Like, would there be a savings from that? And if so, where would we see it?
That would come out of our training line item
Out of the
because that's what
training
we're currently using to pay for our range fees. And as I explained to you, but it's been a few weeks now, so as a refresher, we're currently getting about 10 days a year for our range fees. And the agreement that Oak Harbor was proposing would give us at minimum 30 days a year if we desired to have that many. So there's a lot to gain from that. And it wouldn't be limited to just firearms training, but that also allows us to incorporate all other use of force training. So that could be our TASER training, our defensive tactics, our patrol tactics classes that we're completing pursuant to I-940, maintaining our compliance with the state for all those required courses that we have to meet every 3 years.
So do you think there would be like, because right now you have 60,000 in here for next year, like, would you, this is probably a tough question to answer, but would you equate that to like 20,000 in savings next year? Is there any kind of like?
Our annual range fees are in the neighborhood of $7,500. And that's what we used as a benchmark to get to that $150,000 estimate was we would be proposing a contract with the city of Oak Harbor that allows us to pay no range fees, but have a guaranteed place to train for the next 20 years. 20 multiplied by 7,500 puts us at the $150,000 estimate.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Miller?
And I would also point out that range fees are highly likely to increase between now and 20 years from now.
Yeah, Mr. Young.
Thank you. I am a fervent supporter of the police. Well, our police in particular, simply because of, it's a good force, and I understand that. My challenge, though, is I'm fiscally conservative in the sense that where we are in a budget and the struggles to try to keep as many people as we can, those stakeholders in our community, in the positions that they are, or somehow being able to utilize those things. So, with that as my purview, I'm struggling a little bit with the 150,000. Not that it's not a great investment ordinarily, it really would be, and it would be a beautiful thing to do. But I'm struggling right now because we have people whom jobs are being eliminated, and some people, it may not be as easy for them to find other jobs. So when I'm looking at the items on the list of stuff that we absolutely have to have, those are the things that I'm looking for right now, because again, that just simply means once we are clear and when the dust begins to settle and we figure out, where we are, how do we get there, what are some of the tools we're going to use to sort of begin that process, then we may make some adjustments. But, going in it not necessarily blind, but, with so much dust in the air, I struggle with that. So in that, my instincts have me being very conservative about how those dollars are going out. And the justification, for me is more than it might save us money in the long run. And I believe it would, but in the immediate sense of today, we're still trying to put everything in that box. And, I don't know about the rest of council, and the mayor's put forward his proposal as best. I know there's a lot of stuff going into it. I'm just conservative about how that money is going to be spent. And if it is absolutely urgent right now, we're increasing the number of police out there in the community. It's a beautiful thing. My challenge with that, though, right now, particularly in the budgets cycle and where we are, the fears nationally, economically, is Anacortes need equivalent to a Burlington need or Mount Vernon need or City of Seattle need? Because we live in a community that is somewhat isolated in a good way. Where I came from, even though it was a great community, people lock their doors when they first walk in. I mean, the blinds are closed as soon as they get dusk. And here, I have so many of my neighbors, the blinds are wide open. My guests come and they say, well, Anthony, why are your windows open? I said, I live in Anacortes. So what I'm saying, I'm using that as an example to say, is our need as a police force the same as a Mount Vernon, the same as a Bellingham? I'm not convinced our need is exactly the same. Now, does that mean that we don't prepare? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just simply saying that I don't believe our need is as great as that, and I'm happy about that. But when it comes down to trying to figure out where those additional dollars are going right now, although I think it's a great idea, my first instinct is to say, whoa, 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 wait a minute, let's see where we are and how we get there. You've pitched it wonderfully. Ordinarily, my answer would be absolutely. But right now, I just think that we don't know where we are. And as the dust settles and we figure out where we go from here, then, but right now, I'm supportive, but I wouldn't vote for it. Thank you.
Ms. Chloe McGrath.
Very well. Thank you. Two things. One is, were we able to replace all of the guns this year? It was planned on for 2025, correct? And we've gone through that.
Correct.
Awesome.
So those have all been replaced, and the officers are all qualified on the new platform. So
cool.
We are done with that.
Thank you. And then the other question I just had was looking at insurance went up pretty significantly. I'm sure there's a reason why. Can you explain that?
I don't have any control over the insurance. That's not something that
Somebody.
Yeah, so that insurance, again, is going to fall back to that evaluation we do on the 5-year history of claims made against the city and which departments those fall against. So that's, we do that every year, that 5-year look back on claims against the departments. And I don't have the specifics, in front of me on what drove that, but that's the basis of how we allocate that insurance. So
because it went up 126%. Yeah. So I was just curious, from 52 to 118,000 seemed.
I share your concern, Ms. Cleveland. I look at my budget weekly and I see that number as well. And it's unsettling.
If it pleases council, I could bring our spreadsheet back that shows how we come up with that, if that would help in understanding.
So I guess I'm just asking, is it because we bought the 3 new vehicles? Did some major thing happen? I mean, we're going over everything with a fine tooth comb. So
Right,
just to
so-
understand.
Yeah, in this case, so we get our liability insurance from WCIA, and it's 2 parts. One is it generally goes up, year to year. In fact, we've seen significant increases in that insurance over the last several years, and then that change in, based on the claims history. So I'd be happy to talk more about that later.
I think it's safe to say that's not our necessarily our claims history. It's overall claims history, and that WCIA is the overall insurer. The big claims are typically police actions. That's not us. But WCIA does insure many, many other police agencies. And juries are awarding much higher verdicts.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
So I would be interested, just for my own edification, how we allocate the insurance costs across departments. Chief, for 2026, are there any proposed changes up or down in FTEs?
No, right now, we have 1 vacancy due to retirement that we have not filled, and we are continuing to hold interviews, and we're keeping our finger on the pulse of the candidate pool that's out there. We have not found a candidate that we feel is the quality of person that we want to hire for our department, and so we're choosing to wait until we have a candidate that's that level before we worry about trying to fill that last vacancy. In the meantime, that allows us to see what direction the budget's going between now and the end of the year. So
vacancy, but same number of FTEs budgeted 2025 and 2026?
yes.
Okay.
We're just kind of
Yeah, a
that
vacancy
last
is
position of a
different.
holding pattern.
Right. So you're choosing maybe not to spend that money by not hiring that position yet, but still the same amount as budgeted.
That's my understanding.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, other questions for police? Again, it's not the end of the questions from council. It's the beginning of the process. Mr. Hoagland, Rhonda, do we want to? Chief, were you finished? Were you good? I was asking council if they had any more questions for police to try to, we got more stuff and I didn't see any, but that doesn't mean the questions are over for the budget process. This is the presentation. Mr. Hoagland, did I miss something? Am I trying to move this along?
Yeah,
Am I clearly trying to move this along? Okay.
Remember, I just
Yeah.
have one
Yeah, please.
follow-up
Yeah.
question, and it's not intended to question the decisions that are being made right now, because again, I know it's not easy for any of the departments to have to, we're in a tough place. We really are at this point. So, but if in some of these shifts that you're making, Chief, and I guess this is I guess what I'm looking at is, because, there's been, of course, community outcry about, just what we're having to do as a city, but the reality is the reality. The question becomes, for some, is it possible, given if we have holds on position or non-holds, just not choosing not to fill those, but they're in the budget, that some of the people or someone, maybe, let's say in another department, who's being furloughed, or whatever the term we're using, to sort of slip over and do a little work in your department. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is it possible for people, or sometimes it may be an employee working in one department, may be able to come over and help out, because it's something that you need done in your department. It's a legitimate use of resources that are already there, and it just provides a greater cushion is, I'm sure that's a question for the mayor, but I just wanted to sort of see if there was a way for some of those that may be leaving and not ready to go simply because it's a difficult time for us all. But if you have a need in your department that you've already budgeted for, could that be used?
So I'm going to go ahead and just clarify one thing, that the police are down one head count from prior year. So had we not removed that head, they would have been budgeted for 41 positions as it stands. Their current budget dollars reflects 40 positions, which is one open.
Okay, council, absent any more questions, let's move on to fire.
Well, I was waiting for the chief to answer my question. That's it.
Yeah,
That's all.
so to answer Mr. Young's question, for our commission staff, of course, you're required to have a certification from CJTC to be able to perform law enforcement duties. For our non-commissioned staff, those individuals are, for the most part, very specialized in their roles. They're required to go through background checks. They have training on our specialized records management systems that takes a fair bit of time to master. And so I think it would be not realistic to have people interchange from other departments. They wouldn't be able to have the time in those systems to be proficient with them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it did. I guess, when we're looking at ways to try to keep, our key staff employed, committed to this community, it's a difficult choice. I know that and respect that. But I was just hoping or just seeing if there were some things that could shift around a bit, even temporarily, in order to sort of keep as many as we can in place. So I needed to ask you that question.
I understand.
Okay, we ready? Move on to fire?
Okay. Let's start down, kind of hit the highlights.
Yep.
Is that better?
Just you need a eat the microphone there, chief.
How about now?
There we go.
All right. Let's start down. Overall, it looks like our overall budget's 0.5% up from last year, but 252,000 down from what was requested. Just kind of go down, hit the high points, and then answer any questions you might have. Salaries and wages, overall is up 5.7%. That reflects the eliminated assistant chief position we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and the reduction in hours of our administrative assistant from 40 to 20. Also includes the 3 grant-funded firefighters, SAFER-funded firefighters. Overtime's down 100,000 from what was requested. That's going to be kind of on the edge of what's realistic. If we have no extended sick or vacancies and we're able to hire laterals when the time comes, it'll be close, right in there. With that, of course, we have minimum staffing in our contract. We have operational needs to standbys and brownouts that we've talked about during like Prop 1 and things like that, required training and certifications, much of which has to be done off duty. We will be working to train on duty when possible, but quite a few of our tech disciplines just doesn't allow for that. In our office and operating supplies lines, overall, there's most of the lines have some small decreases from what was requested. Kind of the outliers are the 2031 or suppression, which is primarily our PPE and uniforms. With that, and we're anticipating somewhere between 3 and 5 hires in the next calendar year. Each hire is between $6,000 and $10,000 of equipment upfront, depending on what we happen to have on the shelf and what size the new employee may be. So again, that's up from 90 last year to about 115 projected for this year.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
Sorry, Chief, I kind of lost track of where we are right now.
So I'm going down roughly in the order that it was listed out here, but I was only touching on the ones where I thought there were significant changes or
Okay, so what line are we on right now?
supplies.
Okay, great. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure. The other big ones there, of course, is the 7031 which is our EMS supplies. That's $155,000, and that is what we requested. We have increasing call volume every year, increasing costs, and it's just not realistic. We can't control what supplies get used on the medic units. The 7131, which is just below that in the big sheet, again, that's our medications. And again, we've added new medications this year. And overall, these are all lumped into supplies. I'm just breaking them down a little bit. Next one is our tools. Overall is down from request. Kind of the big ones I want to talk about are the 1035 account, which is where we've been recording our radio replacements. As you recall, over the last, I think this would have been the third year, we were planning on replacing between 4 and 6 radios a year. So we had a 10-year replacement cycle for all of our portable radios. That's going to take a pause this year. There's still some money in that account. We may do 1 or 2 later in the year, but we're also planning on potentially replacing some of our dated tablets for our field reporting system. We're switching over to an iOS platform. Some of that's going to be replacement through IT, I think, but some will be new purchases. So that's why we left some money in that line as well. The other big one there I want to talk about is the 7035 tools. And that's the one, if you'll remember, I can't remember if it was 22 or 23 when we folded the 110 fund. We had a reserve there of, I think, $700,000 or $800,000 at the time. We talked about our big dollar items, ECGs, gurneys. Currently, our gurneys are 20 years old. We're trying to replace one a year. Many of our ECGs, which cost between $60,000 and $70,000 a piece, are all functioning fine, but some have outlived their service life. And so when they break, there's no longer going to be a repair and things like that. So we need to be prepared to replace them if and when that time comes. Professional services, again, spread out over multiple lines, but roughly status quo from last year. That's a tremendous amount. I printed off before the budget process all the things we've put into the 41 accounts. It's about an inch thick sitting on my desk. Happy to provide detail, but it's pretty much everything we do around the station: service contracts, software contracts, and many other things. Communications lines, again, there's part in suppression, part in EMS, but that's our dispatch fees, radio infrastructure, cell services, and all those sorts of technologies. That's tracking a little bit low this year. There's no significant changes, but it is 20,000 higher than what was requested for 2025, just due to expected costs it would have been over. Again, similar to the police department, training is a significant concern. We've dropped it by about 50% throughout all the lines where that's covered. We talked about this a little bit back in May at the budget retreat, and really it's sustainable for a year. Now that's a short-term issue. Unless we hit a bunch, if we have to hire entry-level employees when we hire this year, and then academy costs between $12,000 and $15,000 per, this won't cover that. We're going to be making every effort to hire laterals, but we'll have to cross those bridges when we get to them. But other than that, again, if we were to keep it at this level for multiple years, we really start to degrade some of those training abilities. We can survive short-term. The other thing, it's small. I just want to point out down on the rentals lines, it was $5,000 this last year. That was for the Marine 29 moorage. That's now being covered in trade with the port. But beginning in July of this year, we're now paying $200 a month for the antique fire engine storage. So that's just why there's still some money left in that line. Just one thing I want to point out on the capital purchases overall, we have $800,000 slotted in 2026 for capital. That's the fireboat and the generator out at Station 3. I think an important point there is that of that 800,000, only $10,000 is general fund. The rest is some combination of impact fees or grants. So that happy to answer any questions you might have.
And Council, if you notice, Rhonda is doing a great job of trying to keep up with what the chief is speaking on with switching back and forth between the overall slide plus the line item details with the bars numbers back to the CFP. So
Mayor
yeah,
Miller.
go ahead.
Just a quick question. The bottom line, miscellaneous internal. That's the third largest number. What? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so me either. No, it's kind of a funny one. We talk about it pretty much every year. So that is where when we bill out, so we bill roughly $2 million a year in EMS ambulance transports. We only get back about $1 million of that. I'm using some big round numbers here, but then the other $1 million gets debited out in those 49 accounts. And one is for general and the other is for Medicaid specific.
I remember that from last year. Thank you for teaching me again.
Mr. Young, yeah.
Yes. Chief, first of all, you've always done a brilliant job, I thought, of building the force. You come in, your hair's looking great. That was a joke. But at the end of the day, though, are you reducing any FTEs?
Yeah, so what reflects in the budget is there's again the AC assistant chief that we lost, and then also our administrative assistant has been cut from full-time to half-time.
Okay. And okay, I'm sort of writing full-time to half-time. Okay. And excuse me. Again, I'm always I know we have to make cuts. I really do. And just out of curious, how much of a savings is the cut? Well, the cut from the assistant chief is what you also pointed out in this document as to it being a great savings, and how you were going to allocate that money to something else. Since you're cutting the administrative assistant from full-time to half-time, how much of a savings is that?
So it's somewhere, total cost and benefits was, I think, $107,000.
That's at full-time.
That was for full-time.
Uh-huh.
It's more than 50% of that in the cut because of the loss of benefits, which is significant. So it's half the salary plus the majority of the benefits. So I would guess 65 or 70,000.
Is the savings 65 or 70,000?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Bolton?
to that point, I know you've cut and cut. Is it possible to make up that money somewhere else out of these line items? I'm sure that's been looked at, but I have to ask the question.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's possible. Just a little history there. In the beginning, it was slotted to be cut, a full FTE removed. There was a lot of, for me, deciding how to approach that. What I approached that with was an attempt to make some concessions, with some tool lines, some overtime lines. And so by reducing some overtime initially, we were able to get that back to half-time FTE. After that, we still was working with the mayor to make some additional concessions. We there were some personnel concessions that I really don't want to get into details tonight, that were kind of late coming in this process. It is my hope that we continue some of those discussions and attempt to make some more movement in that. Yes.
Ms. Cleveland McGrath, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess to continue along those lines, while it's not the purview of council to do staffing choices, that's the mayor's responsibilities. I'm curious because we haven't had a conversation of we've received the list of positions that have been cut or reduced, but I'm curious as to kind of the roles and responsibilities of that position. Have you thought about how you are going to? I'm curious to know what that position, the value of that position. How do you plan to modify that and kind of pick up the slack? I think that some of the discussion that I'm kind of curious about and I'm assume other council members are too in the public, is what kind of effects does this have on the community, the service we're providing and things like that? So could you speak to that
No,
kind
happy
of
to.
angle?
Yeah, so obviously, we only have one admin staff that isn't operational. The rest of us are all subject to call outs or whatever may be going on. So when she's not there, the office is closed. So the doors are locked, the phones aren't being answered. The answers will be less responsive to the public. Will be slower to respond to public records requests, to fire permits and things like that. And other projects will be slowed down. The other realistic impact is that the AC and I are then the closest ones to the door. So we did talk about the battalion chief conversation a couple of weeks ago about deep work and being called out. So that's my other bigger concern, is that we're also going to have to stop what we're doing, because when people knock on the door, ring the doorbell, we can't just look at them out the window. So we'll have to stop and deal with that, which is not ideal. And again, why I'm hoping that to make some progress over the next few months to fix this. Yep.
One last piece on this.
Yeah,
Mayor, if I
go ahead.
may. Thank you, Mayor. Just out of curiosity, I guess, why it's in looking at all of this, again, I'm just sort of delving in, and again, I truly appreciate the department heads, the mayor. It is a difficult time. So my question really is that if it's a $65,000 saving, somewhere right around there, and I thought you said that you will get 3 to 5 new hires in the coming year. Is that 3 to 5 new hires absolutely essential? If I guess what I'm trying to do is figure out, how do you save, that part-time person going from half-time to part-time if it's only 65,000? And if you said that you're going to hire 3 to 5 new hires in the coming year, is the 3 to 5 new hires, I know that's your preview, is it something that we absolutely have to have in this timeline because it would affect service? And if not, is it a way to sort of help, the stakeholders in this community to sort of remain? I know that's your choice, Chief. I'm not questioning it absolutely at all. I appreciate what you do. I'm just saying, where I see 3 to 5 new hires, I thought that's what you said, in this coming year. It would, for me, given the phone calls I've gotten from everybody in the world across the stratus from every single department. And, so my concern is trying to make sure that our stakeholders, as much as we can, preserve them if we can. And so my question really is more about the 3 to 5 new hires. If even you staggered would it allow for that next person to, keep the lights on at their house?
Yeah, no, I understand.
You
your
get what I'm
question.
trying to say?
So-
Because it's truly not
yeah.
a challenge to you, Chief,
No,
or the
you're-
mayor's budget. It's just a question as a council person in moving this forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the 3 would be the safer positions, and the 4 or 5 would be there's potential retirements and things like that. So there's would be 3 for sure. I think up to 5 realistically, based on what I know. The problem, so there can be delays in some of those hires to build up, and that's not an issue. Those are some things we'll be talking about, but we can't not hire them if we're going to take the grant. So part of that safer grant, when we wrote it, it was changing from 33 to 36 line employees. And then if you'll recall, the operational impacts would be all the things we talked about during that battalion chief / safer grant presentation a couple of weeks ago. If we were to not hire one of those positions, which would honestly, in the situation we're in today, I would love to do. That would be amazing, to not hire somebody and then allow our administrative assistant to be unaffected. The problem is, if we do that, we are ineligible, or we will be ineligible to receive those grant funds back.
I totally
That's the
get
dilemma.
that. I guess my question was more about not hiring, but delaying. And is there a deadline for the delay? Saying, if you've got, in order to continue to get this grant, to honor what we said we do in getting this grant, I have to have someone hired by June of 2026, all of those things. I'm just saying, is it a cutoff deadline that we don't look bad. I was just curious
Yeah,
because I
so
thought.
We built that in the budget. So
I'm sorry.
my understanding is we built, correct me if I'm wrong, we built that in that delay into the budget.
Yeah, when we were trying to close that $9 million gap, that's one of the things that we looked at was potentially in the fire department, those 3 safer positions, not hiring January 1, hiring April 1. That gives 3 months of conserved cash flow. I want to say that was around 150,000 that we estimated in saved cash flow. That is built into this budget that we have now. And that was based on, we used some logic there. We understand that there are dates and timelines associated with this grant, but currently those websites that need to be accessed to move those grants along are deactivated. So we felt like it was pretty low risk in assuming a 90-day pause to conserve that cash flow.
Mayor Miller.
Yeah, go ahead.
I understand that in addition to the overall budget picture, the fiscal picture that we do have a potential cash flow constraint as well, right? Do you want to talk any more about that?
Yeah, so we do need to maintain a positive cash position, particularly in our general fund. We have a number of accounting funds, the general fund being our most important. If we dip into a negative position in that, I guess I'll rephrase that. We can't really dip into a negative position in that. And we know from historical trends that January and February are our lowest revenue months. So that's the 2 months of the year that are going to have the biggest impact on that existing cash flow. So we have been projecting year-end cash of around $1.5 million. We're going to need that cash to get us through first quarter until we start collecting property tax and other revenues. So that related to that, I mentioned this last week. I will have an ordinance coming to council at some point to freeze our emergency reserve balance at the level that it's currently at, based on cash flow projections. As a kind of reminder, that rainy day fund, we have the emergency reserve fund, is based on 17% of our operating expenses, cash non-capital operating expenses. And based on existing cash flows, that will grow by about 492,000 at year end. So to conserve that amount of cash, I'll be asking council to freeze our rainy day fund where it's at, currently about 5.3 million, to, again, back to this 1.5 million that we need to get us through that first quarter. That 492,000 would stay within that operating cash to be able to absorb that cash flow balance. Hopefully that makes sense.
Maybe we can look at that on paper in the future, because I definitely didn't follow all those numbers. But I guess I would point out that I guess I'm a little hesitant on reliance solely on logic when it comes to federal government grants. But still, what you're trying to achieve there is pretty important. So whether that works out or not with the grant is an open question, I guess. But regardless, we need to preserve cash for those times of low cash flow. So I think we ought to be considering that as we look through everything else here.
The 10th time he explained it to me, I understood it. So you'll eventually get it, but there is a real window for the SAFER grant. Again, I think it's fair to say that it allows us that flexibility, which is why we built it into the budget to balance it without even more serious cuts.
I guess my last thought on that, the general fund is in place for the general support of the city. We can't run out of cash in the general fund. We don't have anywhere else to turn to. I guess maybe Skagit County, but that's just not going to be, it can't be an option for us. We can't run out of cash in the general fund. That's why these discussions are really important. And the consideration of cash is paramount in these budget discussions.
Mayor Miller.
Yep, go ahead.
I don't know when a good time is to ask this, Mr. Hoagland, but when we've got these 13 positions that are being cut, I was kind of curious, what about vacation pay, sick pay? Are those items that we're going to have to pay out in cash before the end of the year also? Is that a significant amount?
Yeah, we actually factored that into our cash flow projections. So this 13 positions that we're talking about, the fire department also has year-end payouts that are coming up. We did take a look at all of that based on what the cash or the leave balances for those positions that we're talking about, and that what we paid out last year. So those amounts are factored into our year-end cash projections. So we did take those into account.
Is it a significant amount, or is it?
It's tens of thousands. It's
Hundreds.
Okay.
Wait, yes, hundreds or?
No, tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands.
I guess, sorry.
Yeah, go.
I guess, my last question is just, the reducing it from, full-time to part-time, is that a sustainable structure for the fire department, or is this really a cash flow fix? Is there some other? Are we going to be coming back and asking for this position back is really what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, I'll be asking for this position back. Yes.
Yeah. Shoot, that's the hope with all the positions. I mean, really, but that's not what's happening.
Okay.
That's not what's happening with, right now. Those positions are going to be laid off as they were notified this morning.
Council, if there's nothing else on fire, we can move along to Parks and Rec.
Who was the short guy that was here? Should I go? Go for it. Evening again, Mayor Miller, Council. So with me at the table, our Assistant Director, Mr. Vokes, our Senior Center Administrator, Mr. Wolfswinkel, our Parks Manager, Mrs. Johnston, and our Recreation Manager, Mr. South. So they're here to help me look and act intelligent and try to answer your questions as best we can. So we have before you the Parks and Recreation budget for 2026. We are down about 5% from the prior year. Mr. Hoagland and Ms. Beckel, correct me if I'm wrong, we've eliminated one position, our maintenance tech. That's not funded in the budget. That's our maintenance techs are the folks who go out and mow the lawns and do the various work in the parks that you see on a regular basis.
Just to be clear, that was the frozen position.
Correct. It was a frozen, it wasn't eliminated or laid off. It was a frozen position that we are now eliminating from the budget per Mr. Walter's question of the last couple departments. And then you'll see that we have some wage increase and benefit increases per the CBA. And then our supplies have gone down and about 21%. Those are the things that you see that we do. Everything from the mitts that we buy, the fertilizer, to the field conditioners, the things that we use for our day-to-day operations, garbage bags, et cetera, et cetera. Those will go down 10%. Our inventory for resale, that's most likely things at the park that we use for firewood and things like that. Interfund, I think that's explanatory with the other cuts that were made in ER&R. Professional services, those are things that we use So everything from cleaning of uniforms to assistance with Washington Public, it's assistance with our maintenance and monitoring of our machines there. And then communications, our cell phones and other things. And repairs and maintenance. I mean, that line item there is something that, we've shifted a lot of that cost into supplies and work with Mr. Ludeman and ER&R, our Public Works, to try to find creative ways to help us keep new tools and those kinds of things. Because you can imagine running a mower or a weed eater for 8 hours a day for 2-3 months, they break down pretty quickly. So those are the main items I wanted to highlight from our Parks and Recreation budget. We still have our staff intact, and that's what the people that do the bulk of the work. Our seasonal staff comes in and helps us throughout the spring and summer to keep our visitors happy at Washington Park, to do the grooming and landscaping that you see around town. So we're grateful for that to remain in the budget, and they help us immensely. Our 6 maintenance workers help us, like I said, do the mowing and the bulk of the work that you see that keeps the parks active and vital and welcomes visitors as well as local residents. So any questions that you might have for me or our staff on Parks and Recreation? And that would include also Mr. Wolfswinkel's budget at the Senior Activity Center.
Go ahead and hit them up if you're ready.
Moving on to the cemetery. So the cemetery, you'll see a slight increase there. That's just because we moved a little bit around as far as salary. So they're not increasing positions at the cemetery. It's just moving some of the costs into that fund for folks that actually do the work. That we've had that limited in the general fund, but we've reallocated a small amount there. So that's why that factor is up on the total, and you'll see under salary and wages. So it's not adding new positions, it's just doing some slight shifting of costs. That would also explain the reason for the personnel benefits, but then the supplies there are down, as are the other items that you can see. Our utilities services there, that's largely, water, irrigation, things of that nature at the park. It's a large area of green space. We think it's important to keep that lawn looking as best we can throughout the year, so we irrigate it accordingly. And that is the cemetery. So that budget up by 27% is as Mr. Hogan and Ms. Peck noted in the notes to you, it's driven by internal labor distribution. Okay.
Mayor Miller. So the insurance line item being up by almost 1,500% would be another reason to learn more about how insurance is allocated among the various departments. So if we take into account both Parks and Rec and Cemetery together, your salaries are up, then salaries and wages line item would be up more than the 6.2% that you showed just on the Parks budget alone, right?
Right. So the increases that you see are through the collective bargaining agreement with our Teamsters, right? So the shifts that you see around are just moving that money into the cemetery to pay for just our operating costs.
And did you do hour study or something like that to determine that it needs to be shifted over there, or how did you determine it should?
So we've looked at what our employees, where they're focused and what their hours are going towards, and then made those shifts accordingly.
Okay.
Okay. I'm on to our capital facilities. So in that, for 2026, you can see, I can go down project by project. You can see the projects that we have. I'll just kind of explain them for you and for the public so they can understand the funding for that. So the Heart Lake Shoreline Restoration, Mr. Vokes will be the project manager on that one. That comes largely through grant funding through the state, with match from the Conservation Easement Program interest earnings. So that's an endowment that we can't spend the principal, but we can spend the interest earnings. And so as laid out in the supporting documentation when council passed that fund, this would be an allowed use.
So that's a program we're working on together with ourselves in the state and our partners at the Samish Indian Nation, helping us to kind of redesign that and the shoreline plantings, et cetera. The West Side Park construction would be impact fees that we collect from the sale of new housing. Impact fees can be used for growth. And so the West Side Park at West Sixth in Minnesota, then we'd be working with some private entities to help us stretch our dollars even further, probably our partners at the Anacortes Parks Foundation, to try to bring in some amenities to that lot on the corner. And that could be phased in, say if someone wants to come later after we build infrastructure and donate a playground structure. And again, Mr. Vokes would be the project manager on that one. Skate park restroom parking, that is just a completion of the project that we started, and that money came from the sale of the current location of the restroom and parking lot. So that money would go in towards that construction that should go to bid very soon. Kalacheeth Park improvement, we keep that in out of our less than significant reserves now, just in case we find an opportunity. We worked with the museum and the Samish Nation on a park planning project, and if we keep some of that seed money in and a donor comes forward, it gives us an opportunity to move ahead with it. So that is why that's there. We don't have immediate plans to spend it, but the opportunities could come and we would come back to you and talk to you about that. Columbarium installation, that is at the cemetery. A columbarium is above ground niche. So what cremated remains can go in above ground, made of granite. So we have an opportunity for that. That's been a request that we've had for some time. And then we're taking advantage of an opportunity to put that in. That would be something that would raise funds for the cemetery fund 102. And then the Depot Plaza expansion, that's the county development grants that we have there. We're going to spend that. The Anacortes Senior Activity Center program space upgrade is a plan to convert where Mr. Wolfswinkel and Ms. Miller's office is now into a program space and move them to another space. And that funding would come from the Senior Activity Center Foundation. And finally, pickleball infrastructure. What would a year be without pickleball? And so we try to keep that in the budget. We have no money dedicated, just to be clear to the public. We have no funds dedicated. We're hopeful we could find contributions if that money became apparent. We are fortunate in this town, as you all know, that we have many generous donors that come forward and support our Parks and Recreation and Senior Activity Center programs. So if there are any questions along those lines, myself or these intelligent people to my right can help answer them for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Walters.
On the pickleball infrastructure, you say we don't have any money allocated, meaning if you looked at that project separately, would it all be contributions?
Completely, 100% contributions.
Okay. And then the money from the ACFL endowment, how much money are we proposing to spend from that for the Heart Lake?
So we would propose to spend roughly 470,000, could be less, because we would also seek private donations. So the funding for that would be the state grant, the conservation user program interest earnings. We have impact fees that could go towards that as well. And then we would probably partner with the Anacortes Parks Foundation. They like a good project that we'd talk to our Quanian friends about to see about getting that kind of money in. So I think it's it's a very hopeful grant, but we have 475-ish thousand from the state. We can match that with our internal city funds, be it a mix of impact and CEP. Then we go outside to our partners in the city community rather for the rest.
But if we looked at that project on its own sheet in the CFP, how much would we be projecting to spend from CEP?
150 this year.
150
this year,
and then in 2027 more?
Correct. Yep, the remainder.
For a total of
470,000.
One sheet just Rhonda just pulled up the one sheet.
Oh, can't keep up with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that a typical expense from the CEP?
We have never spent money from the CFP.
So that would be
interest earnings. That's correct.
Okay. And then how much money do we have in the CEP interest earnings?
CEP interest earnings, I do not know right now. So I think we have a balance of approximately $500,000 in that, because you have the quarry as well. So you have the quarry funds that we received from the payments from the sale of rock in the quarry over time that we've held in that fund. And then the CEP interest earnings, I want to say, are about $500,000 as well.
That's my recollection as well. We can confirm that number, bring it
Yeah.
back to you.
So we're proposing to spend 80% of the CEP interest earnings, the accumulated interest earnings.
That is correct.
Okay. But we will be looking for other funding sources to try to avoid spending that money.
That is correct.
Okay. The project is important. We want to do the project. We need to match the grant money, but I am pretty nervous about that.
All right. Anything else for parks? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
The museum?
All right, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Well, difficult times in the museum budget for everybody here and especially the people who were laid off. We are significantly down, as it says in our description, approximately 31%. And the staffing reduction makes it, the logical question is, how are we going to do what we've done? And part of that is we operate 3 facilities, the Carnegie Gallery and Research Library. These are public facilities that people have access to during a set schedule. Year-round, the Carnegie Gallery at the main museum, the Maritime Heritage Center, we operate year-round. That is a 4-day-a-week schedule. And then we have the W.D. Preston open through the summer and then weekends during the shoulder months of the summer. So we don't have a plan yet on what a future schedule will look like, but we will consider ways that we can adjust the scheduling so that we have the staff to cover that. And if you have any questions, I'm open to them. I could go on to the CFP if there aren't any questions.
Mr. Walters.
But before you go on to the CFP, you show 4.8 FTE here. What was your 2025 budgeted number of FTE?
7.45.
7.45.
Yeah, we had a education curator position that was frozen and that won't be in the 2026 budget.
All right, CFP.
CFP, there's been some delays in the project. We are in the comprehensive plan update, the parcel that the museum is on is being changed to public use, and that will allow us to pursue the permitting that will allow us to build the storage and workshop building. What's in the 2026 budget is the amount that the Museum Foundation has offered, $150,000 plus 50,000 in the donation line from the museum. And so, but the $90,000 in the REIT funding that had been part of the budget is no longer part. Our approach to this is to have dialogue with the foundation and some of the donors to look at what was already a delayed project, to continue to work on the planning and come to council in the 2027 budget cycle to look to what we might need when we have a firmer estimate on the construction costs, to make a request for REIT funds at that time, but to continue the planning work during 2026.
All right, questions for the museum? Okay.
Okay. Let's move on to HR.
Before we move on, I just want to talk about the following for the benefit of the entire council, because I think several of us have had some of these conversations, but haven't looped everybody in. So the question of the antique fire truck. Just to summarize here real quick, I think that the museum considers it not a museum piece. Nod or interrupt me.
Oh, well, what I would say is it certainly is of historic significance.
Sure.
It is not the responsibility of the museum department currently. We've been assigned to be thinking about it along with the fire department and the volunteer fire truck group. But we have not entered into a formal relationship with the fire department or the volunteer group to manage the significant artifact.
Yes, good. Okay, so I just think about the fact that in the fire department's budget, there's a CFP item for a building for the antique fire truck. And I know we've been searching for a building for the antique fire truck, but especially now, and this is really not a new development. And in my thinking, it's hard to imagine adding another building or even renovating an existing building for the antique fire truck. This isn't necessarily something that you need to respond to, but I guess for the benefit of the rest of council, I know that it's been a long search to try to find a place for the antique fire truck. It seems to me unfathomable to think that we should be investing in yet another building to find a place for it. And so I think we ought to consider that later on in this process as to whether or not we should be pursuing that CFP project. And maybe there is an alternative where we have the museum manage it. I mean, I'm looking for input, not necessarily right now, but maybe later, but maybe now if you want. We have too many buildings to staff and too many buildings to monitor, and I don't want to add more like that.
I would say I respect all the effort that's gone into the fire truck and would be willing to be assigned to continuing the discussions that we've already been having with fire department and volunteers. But so that's where we are.
Sorry, I'm confused now. Is there somewhere in here where we're proposing to build a building for the antique fire engine?
I mean, I think what Mr. Walters is getting at is, the museum project by the Carnegie potentially could free up space at this particular spot as one, but there's also a need for the additional museum space.
Okay, yeah, now we're looking at
But I don't think it's something that council has to resolve tonight, but it's definitely something that we've been thinking about for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly, I think I heard loud and clear from council, and maybe I was on council at the time, that the Station 1 is not the right spot for it.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very clear. But again, historic artifact, I think it's a valuable historic artifact. Anacortes should, keep it. We've had it for 100 years, over 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing,
Yeah.
but,
And I want to clarify, no question there. I think we should have a place for the fire truck. My concern, similar to another artifact that we had that we discussed at length in the past, is adding more buildings and more responsibilities versus somehow consolidating some of these responsibilities.
Mayor Miller.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Just one, like a quick question, and if it's not of significance, that's fine. I see that the supplies have been cut $4,000 from 2025 budget comparatively, and then repairs and maintenance from 16 to 10,000. Are there any, I mean, I know the Carnegie building is old and we've had some issues. When we see those cuts, are you going to see anything specific, like specific projects that is going to cause a larger cost in the future? Or is this just smaller projects that are unfortunate to delay, but are not going to be challenge the integrity of the building or something like that?
I don't think it was re-roofed recently and it's attended to on the exterior and interior by the facilities department. And so I don't have any concerns for problems with deferred maintenance on the Carnegie. And, you know, as far as the Preston, that's another issue. And it's just a matter of length of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brett.
Resources up next.
Is HR next? Okay.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the audience. Overall, the HR budget increased by 7.9%. Salaries and wages increased by 9.8%. Our department consists of myself, an HR director, and an HR assistant. Our HR assistant this next year is testing for some high-level HR certifications. So the hope there is that she will promote into an HR generalist pay scale. So that explains a little bit of the increase there. Our personnel benefits are decreasing by 10.1%. Supplies decreased by 3.5%. Interfund decreased by 10.5%. We have an increase in professional services by 10.1%. That is mainly related to, we are currently in negotiations with 3 of our 4 contracts, CBAs. One is the Police Guild, which is expected to go to arbitration. The other is IAFF, the fire union, and then Teamsters. So many of those increases are related to labor relations attorney fees. Additionally, we have promotional testing for police and fire. That takes place every other year. So every other year, you're going to see a bump in my professional services to account for that testing. Yeah, communications is increasing 1,300. That includes cell phones, city use and postage. So that's just a pretty general increase there. Travel and training decreasing 85.6%. And insurance, which is allocated by finance, is increasing by 103.3%.
Again, probably the same question about insurance, which I know finance team will work that up. Any other questions? All right, next up, Steve.
Yes, thank you. Next up's library.
Good evening, council, mayor. So the slide represents there, the library budget is significantly reduced, 28.2%. Nearly all of those reductions come from the salary and wages and benefits line. The loss of 3.25 FTE. I know we're here to talk about numbers, but that represents 5 incredible people who have lost their jobs, just to be clear about that. Going down the line, not much else has changed. The supplies line is the same, 21,000. The inventory resale line is our books budget, which stayed flat. We do have an increase, a continued increase in our ebook consortium costs. So we'll eat that cost in other areas. Our interfund line is down, and professional services, that's a combination of the 20,000 in custodial and then $30,000 for all our software, ILS, and all the things that make the computers run. Next down the line there, communication, so phones, and actually just to note here, this is where we take our passport fees out of. So we have to pay for postage that amounts to about $2,500 a year to mail the passports that we service. So that comes out of that line as well. Travel and training's been halved, and our insurance is down 80%. That's good, right? No claims to the library. So utilities have gone up, unfortunately, 13%. It keeps going up every year. I don't know how to control that expense. If you guys have ideas, please share. And last is repairs and maintenance. I think this is really where bug spray comes out of. And that's it. And just to note, again, I totally understand we're here to talk about numbers, and it makes sense that the reserves are going into the general fund. But I just want to do a shout out for the library being fiscally responsible for all these years, to give that $250 back to the general fund. And I understand why it's happening, and just want to make note of it. Any questions for library?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton and then Mr. Walters.
Thank you. So obviously the library has taken a major hit here, and I'm wondering if you even know yet what programs, what is going to be cut from library services with 5 fewer employees, if you have any idea.
I don't. I mean, there'll be an impact on services, but it's too early for me to really communicate that yet.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Walters.
So unlike some of these other departments, the library has its own fund, which means you also have fund balance. What are we talking about? How much do we have in reserve there? And how much are we budgeting to draw from?
Yeah, so I believe we're projecting to end the year in the library fund with about 300,000. We did our projections into next year based on historical norms again, and that's the amount that we would need to keep the fund from going into a negative position. The budget
sorry, I'm just going to slow you down a little bit to make sure we take it all in. So do you need to keep 300K in the fund at all time?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, to cover the required expenses.
Yes, exactly. And I believe the budget that we have now is, I believe it's a small amount of fund balance that we're using as resources for the library fund. I don't remember now off the top of my head, but our budgeting was pretty close based on that reallocation of property tax back into the general fund.
Yeah, we call it a reallocation to the general fund, but it really it's general revenue that's not going to the library fund. I mean, that's more accurate way of putting it.
It is.
It just historically you've had a fixed transfer or a fixed direct deposit of property tax. in the
Yeah,
library fund.
that's correct. So when we initially set the budget up, that allocation happens when the property tax transmittal comes from the county. It hits our cash receipting system, and then that allocation is made based on our budget. That split is automatically allocated into those different funds. So we just adjusted. And the initial draft was set at what the allocation was last year. We just adjusted that based on those cash flow projections and, reallocated that 250,000 back into the general fund based on the initial allocation that was carried forward from last year.
Okay. Have you sent us the revenue budget?
So
is it in the packet?
We did share the line item draft at the first meeting that we had, but we have not shared we're still in the process of finalizing that, but we did share the first draft.
Yeah, so we went through the original, revenue projections at the revenue hearing. But yeah, so we don't have, I'm sorry, you caught me off guard with that question. It's a good question. And
Well, so for
It's
example,
in-
for the library fund, there be a certain amount of passport revenue and a certain amount of library fund balance that would be showing
Yeah,
as drawing
right.
down. And
I mean, for lack of a better comment, it was just an oversight not to include it in your packets here. We have those revenue projections. They're not finalized. But we do have those revenue projections. We just haven't, wrapped up all the like the final fund balancing and things of that nature.
okay, I think that would be good to look at. I mean, eventually we'll look at like the planning department budget, right? And we'll see how much permit fee revenue is projected. And I think those numbers are worth looking at as well.
If you're curious about the passport, in 2024, it made $21,000.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
$21,000 in 20.
It was the revenue.
Revenue for passports in 2024.
Yeah. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. When you were saying passport, I'm still somewhat naive about some of the services that the library offers. I would love to say I'm absolutely clear on every department service that they offer. So, it's a learning process. But when you were talking about passport services, would you elaborate just a little bit?
Yeah, the library acts as a passport acceptance agent. So when people are applying for a new passport, or if their passport is expired where they can't renew it, they have to come and see somebody in person. So we basically check the paperwork, we read the oath, we go through this whole process, and then we mail to the U.S. Department of State. So we've been doing that for about 10 years. For a long time, we were about the only library in the state that was doing it, and it generates $35 per passport in revenue, and there are expenses as well. And it's a great service, and it's a service that takes a lot of time and energy, not just in the passport appointments, but also in the constant calls that we get and people coming in. We have a certain amount of staff that are trained to be agents. They have to recertify every single year. It's a labor intensive service. It's great. It brings people in. It's a wonderful place to get your passport because your kids can go play. And I mean, it's great. It's an amazing service. But it's definitely one of those things I'm going to take a long, hard look at and to see if it's really a sustainable thing that we can keep up.
Well, it sort of tweaked my interest. One, my passport is about to expire, not, I think, in 2026 or 2027. So I was already making the plans on how am I going to, sort of get that done, where to be done, whether it's Nexus, going up, trying to get an interview that's not a year later. And so that sort of, I think that's a wonderful service. Yes, it's labor intensive. Yes, given that your loss of 5 people at our library does, I think, a great job of service to community. And, I'm sad about the 5 people. I'm sure, as I said to you, every single department, I've had a call from someone in the constituents just pleading for one person or the other. And your department was one of those. And, it's just a hard space to be in at this point. And so I'm hoping, hope burns eternal, I think someone said to me, but yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Did you have something, Ms. Quillen?
Mayor Miller. Thank you. I actually took my kids and they got their passports there last year. And of course, as much as I think I should be able to read directions, I still needed help. So they were very patient with me when I had to run home and get other items. So I understand the need to review that. And if it doesn't make sense to continue, that I can understand that. Kind of like I asked the fire chief too, and I think Ms. Moulton kind of hit on the head was, what kind of impact of having one library manager, 2 library assistants, and 1 library page have on the impact of our public and our community. I know that my kids love going to the library. They beg to go to the library. The librarians there are rock stars to them. They get so excited when they see them at the parades or in public or at the farmer's market. So to the folks that are unfortunately have been laid off. You guys have been stakeholders in our community, and you will be greatly missed. And you are a huge bright spot, not only to parents and community members, but also to our little kids and teens. So I'm sorry to see this happen, and I'm sorry that you've got to be the person up here kind of leading the ship. So I hope that we get some more direction from you about kind of what amazing programs we're not going to get to see moving forward, because I think there is going to be an impact. I know there will be. But thank you for all that you have created at the library and your team.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. And we certainly will be getting back to you about cuts. It's a little too early in the process to start communicating that.
Council, let's move on. PCED.
Good evening, council, mayor. Thank you. So to start, the PCED budget was reduced by one position, which has been vacant since May of 2024. We've had two building inspectors on staff for as long as I've known, and that position, somebody took another job in May of last year, and we elected to keep the position vacant in order for cost savings measures for the city. And that position now has been eliminated. Our budget is a little bit tricky to look at. It's kind of a small budget, but there's some big numbers in here. And I think the big one you see is the $8.5 million under other improvements at the bottom, which is, I believe it says a 1,431% increase, which is a very large number. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. That is, of course, $8 million budgeted out of lodging tax money for the event facility construction. That money's not all coming out in 2026, but it'll be, I'm not exactly sure when we'll have to bond for that, whether it's in 26, and when all of the expenses are going to be, but that is the expected budget.
Mayor Miller?
Yeah, that's cool.
This project wasn't in the draft CFP that we looked at before. But it shows 8 million there, but we've got 8.5 on.
Yes. So the other $500,000 is
the creosote pilings.
For the creosote pilings, which is required creosote removal per our Department of Natural Resources lease for the aquatic lands. So that needs to be removed by the end of this year. They're being gracious, and it is in allowing us a little extra time to remove those. We do have our core permits to do that work, so now we're working on the rest of the logistics of making it happen.
And if you go back to the Event Center CFP project, I think it's worth pointing out whenever we talk about it that it's to be funded. Here you show funded by debt service, but the debt service is supported by lodging tax. And debt service, I guess that's not really debt service on the first year. It's just debt. But, one way or another, that number is hopefully also reduced by grant money. But no general revenue goes into the project.
Mayor, I just want to clarify one thing. No, but we would be on the hook for general revenue if for some reason LTAC funding was not able to support that debt service. So I think it's an important distinction to know that we are projecting to obviously collect LTAC money pretty much indefinitely. that's a fair prediction to make, but we can't predict, will we always collect that money? Will there be a pandemic? Will there be a downturn in the economy? What will happen? So I do think it is a very important distinction to know that once we start that, if for any other reason the LTAC funding is interrupted, we would be on the hook for that with the general fund. I just think that's important to think about.
That's certainly theoretically true, but we did just have a pandemic, so we have some experience with that, and we would have to have LTAC funding drop by half to have not enough money to cover the debt service. So,
You know, I will say it is a one bright spot in this fairly bleak budget, and Mr. Hoagland will back me up. I mean, hospitality and maritime are still, you know, that's our bright future, and certainly this is an area that could support that with. But Mr. Walters is right. I mean, the LTAC numbers have been strong due to that area.
And I don't know if it's really the platform right now to, you know, talk about the benefits of the event center. I mean, it is, when we're looking at what things get to stay in the budget, things that earn money in the long run are important to invest in long-term opportunities. Now, not that the event center itself, event facility, excuse me, is going to be a cash cow, but what it does is it brings in lodging tax, it brings in money to our local businesses, and just creates a vibrancy in the area and creates an opportunity around it, including a new hotel that the port is planning.
An area
the
that's
street.
Yeah.
We haven't crunched the numbers on, you know, an $8 million, which I think is 6 million of it is actually or 5 million of it is actually like materials that we would be getting local sales tax on. Same for whatever the project for the associated hotel that the port intends to build would also, you know, that's just a one-time bump, but again, it's a little bit here and there. So there are net positives to it that's beyond the money being spent.
I think that's a critically important point, and this is just one example project that way, but if there's anything else that we can invest in that bumps sales tax up long term, that is what helps out the budget, because our year to year expenses, whether we cut those or whether we add to those, if revenues don't increase at the same rate as inflation, we will always be losing. So we've got to bump revenues up beyond the rate of inflation and beyond the rate of inflation less the amount that we are losing to inflation and property tax. So it's got to be a significant amount more year after year after year in sales tax, which means we need more economic activity.
So getting back to our budget, so you see a slight reduction in salaries and wages, which has a commensurate drop in personnel benefits. Supplies remain flat. The professional services line again is tricky because it says $972,000. That does not mean that we're paying consultants $972,000 for work. The LTAC spend is out of that. That's $586,000 from LTAC that is spent annually, is also included in that number. In previous years, we've had grants from the Department of Commerce and from the Department of Ecology for either updates to our comprehensive plan and development regulations and our climate element, as well as some smaller grants for our shoreline master program update and some other shoreline associated work from the Department of Ecology, and then another grant for our development services department updates. And that was the digital to paper grant that we got. So those are all dried up at the end of 2025. So we won't be receiving any more income on those, but we also won't be doing any more spending in 2026 on those things. The line item on those professional services, we did recommend leaving 30,000 in for the economic development strategic plan. Again, the concept there being that's a study that will, in theory, allow us to do more economic development, stimulate. So it's money spent towards creating more economic opportunities in the city. And then the other larger lines in there are for the Downtown Anacortes Association and the Community Action of Anacortes office. And then $86,000 of community development block grant money. That is a grant that we get, and then it's passed through to other to the organizations that we support through with that funding for housing and community services. Finally, the other big one on there is you see $45,000 for environmental services, a third-party review. That's a pass through. So that one actually, it's kind of a non-number. That's if somebody submits with their permit application, they need to submit a critical areas report. We'll send that out to a third party. That third party will review it and bill us, and we pass that bill on to the applicant for their as part of their project fees. And so we just need to have some money in the budget so we could pay that third party reviewer before we get the money back from the applicant. So that's what that $45,000 number is about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor Mellon?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So question, we've when we talk about the social worker program that we've committed 60,000 in the past, we're dropping it. We're, I think, proposed to reducing it to 30,000.
Which one is that?
The AFC social worker that we support
In the police budget.
in the police budget.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right.
Not
Which is
Northwood.
not yours, but I think that the AFC social worker and the community action support kind of goes hand in hand. So I'm assuming that the 2025 actual year to date is 63,000. They're budgeted for 84. I'm assuming that's just the last quarter hasn't been paid out to them, or have they not used the full amount? And then how did we determine allocating 65,000 to the community action for this next year?
I think 65,000 was based on the original ask from 2024 or 2024, rather than add to that. But maybe you can back me up if that was right.
Yeah, that's my
60,000,
recollection
but
as well. That was the
65,000.
original budget that we
Oh.
had, and that's carried
Oh.
forward.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, but what Rhonda pointed out to me is it's actually 60,000 for community action. And that's based on what their original ask was and what we funded them for the first 2 years. And then it's a total number of 65,000. The other is the 5,000 for the Salvation Army cold weather shelter voucher program. And so that's $5,000 a year. And I think we discussed that at a previous meeting.
Yeah, I think we did. It was going to be $6,000 a year for 2 years because we needed $1,000 liability or kind of in a pot.
Yeah, right.
I guess the $60,000, when we did it the first couple of years, they didn't have bricks and mortar building. I'm just kind of curious if that amount allows them to continue to keep their storefront, or if there's been discussion of them co-locating with the senior center or AFC. We haven't really had this discussion before, so I just was wondering.
They did submit their budget request, and it has those details. I apologize. I
Okay.
don't have that on me.
That's okay. And we've got our housing and affordability hacks, whatever committee on Wednesday. So maybe that's our time to talk about it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up for the rest of council who's not at that committee level meeting that maybe that's something that we want to come back to and discuss as a full council in the future.
So
We definitely expected that.
Okay.
when
That discussion.
when the budget situation was better understood, we contacted Community Action and the Downtown Anacortes Association and let them know, hey, look, things are bad. We're going to be giving you a reduced, and they understand and they work with what they get. Of course, they would love to have the full amount, but they are aware of this, of the reductions.
I just wanted to say the Salvation Army Cold Weather Shelter dollars at $5,000 or whatever, $6,000 a year is quite an inexpensive ask. And it is ostensibly paid for by the $20,000 in CDBG money that we will be obtaining because we are now billing CDBG for administration that we weren't historically, because we were covering that cost, but we were covering it with general fund. So now we'll cover that cost with CDBG, freeing up a similar amount of general fund dollars. So it works out pretty nicely for us, and it allows us to pay for the cold weather shelter, which is not an eligible expense under CDBG. So, and yet one that everybody seems to agree is really critically important.
Council, we can move on to legal department. No other questions?
Good evening, council. Am I eating the microphone enough here? Yes, okay. The legal department's budget is fairly straightforward. It's really about staff for the most part, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. So for the past 2 budget years, so for 2024 and for 2025, we provided for the prosecutor as an in-house position. We've never filled that position because we were waiting for the caseload in Anacortes Municipal Court to grow to the point where it made sense. The delta between the contracted position and a full in-house position, we figured was somewhere around $40,000. So we held off filling that position. It is now out of the 2026 budget as an in-house position. And so what you notice that in 2 places in the budget, first of all, you notice that salary and wages goes down by 21%. That's because that's been taken out of there, as well as personnel benefits. But then you notice that professional services goes up by 87%. That's because that amount is reflected in that line item. I also wanted to point out that professional services for the legal department includes codification services. So every time council adopts an ordinance that amends the Anacortes Municipal Code, we have to pay Code Publishing for their work to get that updated in the online version of the code. Professional services also includes our contract amount then for the city prosecutor, and it includes outside counsel expenses for non-utility related legal matters. So what we've done in this year's budget is we've really stripped down that professional services line item to essentially what we need to cover the prosecution services. So we've taken out any outside counsel allowance for 2026, and we're just going to have to manage that as we move forward. But that was the kind of the concession that we made to help achieve a balanced budget. I will also note that travel and training, we have a number. I have a number of required certification. I have to do a certain amount of training to maintain my bar license. That's where that's reflected, and we did cut down that amount as well as training for other staff members. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Walters.
Let's go back to professional services. You show 570K, And looking at the other sheets. Well, I mean, one of the problems is no, you don't show I'm on the wrong sheet there. Okay.
I was going to say, we'll take it.
Yeah, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Somebody was advancing my slides. Okay, so you're showing 150K. All right, so in this sheet here, you indicate you anticipate increased litigation costs related to the comp plan and development regulation update in 2026. But were you just explaining that you didn't budget for those anticipated increased costs?
So that comment was in the proposed request for council. And correct, we've not.
But your anticipation of increased costs hasn't assumedly changed. The threat has
Correct.
not gone away. Do you have any quantification of that?
In terms of what we think the anticipated litigation costs will be?
Yeah.
I don't, because that's sort of not in our control. I mean, I can sort of estimate based on what a growth management hearings board appeal might be, but you know, it's possible that could get appealed to the growth management hearings board, then the Court of Appeals, and those litigation costs are hard to predict because it sort of depends on the scope. But I can tell you that, you know, when we've had kind of one round of litigation, I always kind of think of $10,000 as a middle of the road estimate for defending against a lawsuit. All I know usually is that won't be the number. It'll be less or it'll be more than that. But you know, the city is not pursuing much litigation, so it's always things that, you know, that we get served with and we have to respond to. So. Does that answer your question?
No, but I mean, I guess I'm trying to quantify that because I think we have a reasonable expectation that someone will appeal to the growth board our adoption of the comp plan and the development regulations, and we will incur those costs. So arguably we should be budgeting for them. Because the money's got to come from somewhere. We got to defend it. It can't just be you and me going to the growth board. So,
right. I have represented the city on appeals to the growth management hearings board. So that's sort of plan A at this point. And
that's what we are planning. Well,
at this point it is. I think that's what we're going to have to do. And at some point there's a tipping point where I can't, you know, that we're spread too thin to be able to do that. And we'll just have to evaluate that when and if we do get appeals and we look at the scope.
Okay.
I'm also concerned about about the budget. I think we all are. I think it's definitely suboptimal, and you know, we're going to have to really keep a close eye on it as we move forward. I mean, our strategy, our plan is to underspend on everything that we can, including, you know, supplies and training and travel, and just manage that throughout the year as best as we can.
Okay.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Young.
You know, quite honestly, I know this is tough talk right about now. Everybody's a bit antsy about how and what we believe we have to do in the right way in order to get it done. But, you know, again, I think it's also important that we commend the teams for reaching deep. And quite honestly, you know, I'm very thankful for the staff and the team that we have, because I honestly believe you're giving your best with what we have, trying to do the most with the little bit. It just is what it is, you know. But I do think that and I'm going to word this very carefully, I'll try. You know, I mean, we hear of how important legal is in keeping us out of trouble and preventing trouble from escalating. It's a big deal. And, you know, a minimal department, you know, with all the other accessories we have to add in, meaning other agencies that come in, it's a big deal. And as we move forward into other areas, access other pieces of this pie that have to come through your department, you know, I just need to make sure that the department has what it needs. And what I appreciate you saying is that you're going to make the most of what you got. But also at the same time, it's good to make sure you have what you need as best as we can get going into this next year as we look through all the dust once it begins to settle and figure out absolutely what we have to have. It just is. But, the legal department for me is a central big piece, just like the other department, but we've got to invest in it or else, there are consequences that come with it. So thank you.
No, thank you for those comments. And I will say that I'm grateful that we were not removing positions from the legal department in next year's budget. And I think that's in part because we have a team that everybody's filling a hole without a lot of backup. So we're grateful to have the team intact, and we're gonna do everything we can to keep providing the level of service that we have to.
One additional thought, if there is an appeal of a comp plan element related to one of the utilities, maybe that's a utility expense.
Agreed. Thank you.
All right, council, we can move on to admin services, start with IT, information systems and technology.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the audience. It's a little bit easier to speak from this mic and still look at the materials. So wanted to start with the Information Systems and Technology Division. And this also is a department that's been impacted by staff cuts, and we're going to absorb that and do the best that we can with that, just like all the other department heads have indicated as well. And wanted to point out that you do have background information with a detailed line item. And I think that's especially important to look at specifically for the IT and the access fiber, because we are very specific in every single line item as we are coming to put that together. I bring that up because the area that you'll see a very large increase is in professional services within the Information Systems and Technology Division. And I wanted to point out what was leading that. We have $195,000 for the Tyler ERP for licensing support fees and the cloud cashiering in the 26 budget. We also will be negotiating, and honestly, there's not much negotiating that happens with Microsoft, but we will go into a successor agreement with Microsoft for our operating systems. So we have allocated $141,000 for that next year. And I think that you'll remember that we made a transition in our VoIP phone systems, our voice over internet protocol phone systems with the transition to Ring Central. That is $54,000. So a big chunk of that is in those three different items. We have made some changes in our DIS reserves and how we are replacing equipment. A couple of years ago, we switched from upgrading our equipment every 4 years to 5 years. And then now we've switched from 5 years to 6 years. By making those adjustments and extending the length of our systems, that is a cost savings of $136,000 this year that we have included. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I did also want to mention, so because I have 3 different divisions or 4 divisions, my time is allocated and split between different things. So 45% of my time goes towards the information systems and technology, and it just shows up as 1 FTE under access fiber, but it is split between the divisions.
We're just seeing this, so there's a lot of information here, which kudos for providing. We are budgeted to spend $194K on the Tyler Enterprise ERP. That's the new Tyler, not the old Tyler, right?
That's correct. That's
Is-
specifically for the licensing support for the new EERP and also the cloud cash sharing product that we have in place now.
that we have in place already?
Yes,
Is that okay? The existing software is called Eden. It is a Tyler product, right?
correct.
The
When we're
new
talking about the new
You're
product,
talking about the new one.
when we're
Okay.
talking about the new product. we
What's the new
refer to it
product
as
called?
EERP.
Okay. All right, so that's the one that's listed here. So the question I was going to get to is there any point at which we were paying for both Eden and the new Tyler ERP product?
Do you want to speak to that?
Go ahead, do you know the answer?
Yes, there will be some overlap no, there will not be overlap. Rhonda will answer this, sorry.
So
This part.
when we flip the switch and say we're implementing a new module, at that point in time, we stop paying any fees for Eden for that module. And we pay on the new system only.
Oh,
So they're
okay.
essentially giving us credit as we migrate. So when Emily says we are paying for both, in the interim time frame where we go from migrating financials to migrating HR and payroll, we are paying Eden costs for HR and payroll only. But as soon as we start that migration or that implementation for those modules, we stop paying for Eden and we start paying for ERP.
And does Tyler give us a credit for the fact that we're using a new Tyler product and are migrating from Eden?
We did a lot of negotiating with Tyler. I feel like we got a good cost.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Absent any other questions on IT, can move forward to court.
So this first page, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the 001-130, which is municipal court and our adult indigent defense wraps up into one bars number. But I think that it's more important for us to look at it at the individual level. So we'll switch to the next slide, please. Oh. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that. So, with the municipal court, our budget is down 2.9% from the prior year. One of the things that we're continuing to look at is the impact of the transition to a new statewide court caseload management system. In 2025, we transitioned to the use of Laserfish, and we're trying to see how the implementation with that is going really well. But the implementation, how it will work with the new court management system that's coming from the state. So we are just continuing to look at that and monitor that. In 2025, we also completed a new recording software system, and that is also working very well. So a lot of the things that we have included in the budget for court are very much maintenance of the services that we have, the professional services. When you look at the public defense in 2025, we made many significant changes in how we're providing those services. That is a reduction of having in-house staff and moving and transitioning to contracted services for that. So in the budget for the public defense, there's a significant reduction in the amount for the salary and wages line, but you will see that is balanced out by an increase in the professional services. If you don't have any questions about the 001-130 line, I'm happy to move on to an access fiber budget. So, and did want to point out that Jim Lemberg, our municipal broadband manager, retired last week, and so we are not backfilling that position. But he has provided us a really good foundation to be able to continue to move forward. And we're, basically we have that business up and running, and what we're continuing to do is bring people into service. So the staff that we have now are very much in the field, getting people into service and supporting those efforts that take to run the everyday municipal fiber internet service. Some of the EDA construction expenses that we had thought were going to be spent in 2025 will likely move to 2026. But those are things that we will account for through the use of the fiber bond that was finalized last December. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you specifically have in regard to fiber. Like IT, we're provided very detailed documentation on at the line item level about every single expense and how we are spending that and how that rolls up into the budget.
Okay. Sounds like we can move on then to final chapter here of our governmental budget finance department. Starting with salaries and wages, I'll point out that we lost an accounting tech today. That's why we see a drop there in our allocated budget for 2026. Dropping down to supplies, I just wanted to point out that 12,000, that does include general supplies for City Hall as well. The the copy room downstairs. Professional services at 335,000. So that's going to include some of the one-time fees related to the ERP implementation. Then down at the very bottom, the miscellaneous internal at 700,000. That's a interfund transfer. We don't have a non-departmental fund in the general fund, so interfund transfers that happen out of the general fund run through the finance department. That's the 700,000 that will go to the parks construction fund for that skate park parking lot. If there's no questions about finance, we can move on to the executive budget. This is pretty consistent from year to year. There's not really any unusual activity that I have identified here that I wanted to point out, consistent in 26 compared to what we were looking at the past year, the current year 25. The next department is the legislative department. Again, pretty consistent from year to year. The one thing I would point out is professional services. We dropped that down to 65,000 for the 2026 estimate, our even year cost. So what drives that professional services is the voter registration costs. We get charged from the county, our share of the cost of elections that happen from year to year. Those even years tend to be a little bit lower, and based on the elections we were seeing coming up, we felt that was the right number for 2026. So other than that, it's pretty consistent from year to year.
Question
Yeah,
for you.
go ahead.
Just as I'm looking at this, obviously the seven of us are the FTEs here. But I'm looking at salaries and wages. Are we the only ones, the seven of us, that are included in that salaries and wages?
There's also some allocation from Mitchell, who runs the filming. I believe Jennifer Tottenham has some time allocated as well. So there are some other staff that do hit a little bit of the legislative budget.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And then the other question I had is around, where did it go? Personnel benefits. Is that also allocated to other FTE members? Because I don't think we,
Yeah.
I'm just curious because it's a.
Yeah, so that percentage allocation would follow the payroll as well, but,
Okay.
and then some of those, there are what we refer to as personnel benefits, just the payroll costs that go along with, the council stipend. So there are some costs associated with that that get included here as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have.
So in
Council.
legislative, we've got A Town is Our Town, and that's allocated 5K. Is that right?
Is that an executive or legislative?
Legislative, line 691.
Yeah, so the idea there is we would retain some budget for A-Town, but it would move to an electronic platform only for this coming budget year at least.
The 2024 actuals were 56K and 40,000 was allocated for 2025. Do we know where the 2025 actuals are coming in at?
I know we have that number, but I don't know if you have it.
Yeah, I don't have it here in front of me.
Only 14? Well,
Oh, so potentially double that, although I think we cut back the second mailing significantly. So it could be significantly less than 14,000, but we can get that info.
so somewhere but 20 to 30K
Yeah,
actuals in
I think so.
2025. And how does that break down? What does 5K get you? Like in 2024, did we spend 5K on layout or something?
So I can't give you that level of detail. My understanding, the 5K would get us an electronic publication and not a hard copy publication.
Oh, okay, so we've done some estimates.
Enough where you could conceivably print it out in-house. It's the printing and mailing that's incredibly expensive. The staff has done a great job of cutting that expense down and still not destroying the product. All right, is that Mr. Oglen?
That's all we have.
All right, so that wraps up the initial shot of the budget. Council's got, some weeks to take a look at that and ask all the questions. And okay, with
Mayor
that,
Miller?
No.
Sorry.
yeah, Mr. Fantini.
When does that come back for adoption? Like how much time do we have roughly?
Yeah.
The next steps, I believe it's November 17th is when we have the public hearing scheduled. And I think final adoption on the current budget is scheduled for the first Monday in December.
Great, thank you.
It's a good question. Okay, other business, item 6E, resolution 3188, city council procedures discussion,
Mayor
possible.
Miller,
Mr. Walters.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion. Yeah, Mr. Young.
No, just for the record, I just wanted to commend Rhonda for just an extraordinary effort to keep us all and to make sure things are in front of us. And I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you. It was very helpful. And I'm glad you were working the controls.
All right, but we are going to keep 6E, this 3188 until you table it permanently. But with that, I'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Have a good night.